the demonic cult alliance, often referred to as the demonic palace. A man with a goatee marveled at the gathering crowd of martial artists. His companion explained, "Of course, as long as they have talent, they will be taught demonic arts regardless of their sect." The man with the goatee suddenly noticed something strange. Huh? But wait, amidst the crowd, he wondered upon seeing someone dressed as if in mourning. Did someone die? His calmer friend replied, Die? Who would die? The 10 demonic palace gathering hasn't even begun yet. Their gazes fell upon a small figure standing apart. Then what about that child embalmer? The young embalmer silently looked up. Memories flooded their mind, their eyes glowing red. Everything starts now. Grandfather. In the pristine white snowscape, a name appeared. Bu Onziol. It was the precious name his grandfather had given him when he found the abandoned child in the snowfield. Following in his grandfather's footsteps as an embalmer, the child also learned the trade. In the past, the child had once remarked about a corpse. Looks like a master of the heaven, slaying sword. Despite the harsh, tiring, and scorned work, the child persevered. Bu Yunseol explained his observation. The man was thin, but his left leg muscles were unusually developed, especially the tibialis anterior. His grandfather gently patted the child's head, praising, "You're very observant." With a proud smile, he said, "You truly are a heaven-sent embalmer." Bu Yunseol thought to himself, as long as his grandfather was by his side, he could face any difficulty. The child's eyes at that time were filled with trust and determination, but the flashback was tinged with sorrow, with a premonition. At least, until that day arrived. Inside the silent house, little Bu Yunseol was practicing the embalming ritual. Outside, night enveloped the bamboo forest. The child's grandfather, Bu Jianyang, sensed something ominous, his eyes sharpening. He muttered a cryptic phrase. They say, the good don't come, and those who come are not good. He gently roused his dozing grandchild. Seal. Wake up for a moment. Bu Jianyang suggested. It's been a while since we played the corpse game. Let's play for a bit. Leaving the child bewildered. Hearing his grandfather promise to give him ceremonial robes and a sword, Bu Yunseol's eyes lit up. Really? The child eagerly replied from behind the door. Yes. With a sad smile, he instructed. Today, try to endure until sunrise. Bu Yunseol innocently asked again, unaware of the impending danger. Bu Jianyang slammed the door shut, his expression cold and resolute. He drew his sword, ready to face the enemy. Outside, a masked assassin was already waiting. Bu Jianyang stepped out, facing the mocking enemy. You hide like a rat, don't you? He continued to provoke. Isn't that right? The enemy called him by his true name. 7, Blade Ghost, Bu Jianyang. Bu Jianyang replied. That's a name I haven't heard in a very long time. The enemy revealed his past. You refused the position of Vice Palace, Lord of the Demonic Palace, and survived by doing this lowly work. He roared and launched a fatal blow. Amidst the storm of attacks, Bu Jianyang calmly thought, I have done the work of an embalmer. Bu Jianyang steadfastly faced the enemy, thinking to himself that this was not a battle for survival, but for atonement. Facing him was a cloaked figure in black, bearing a sinister grin with glowing red eyes. Take my life, he offered, but move the battle elsewhere. Don't let innocents suffer. The cloaked figure merely sneered hideously at his offer. Very well, the figure agreed, but Bu Jianyang immediately warned him not to think of fleeing. Bu Jianyang's eyes sharpened, tracking every movement of his opponent. Meanwhile, elsewhere, a closet door trembled slightly. The noise from inside the wooden closet grew louder. The door burst open, and Bu Yunseol stumbled out, panting. I can't take it anymore, the child whimpered. It's cold, and I want the ceremonial robes and sword. Suddenly, Bu Yunseol noticed the unusual silence. Grandfather? Where did he go? Could he have been summoned by the authorities at this hour? Bu Yunseol worriedly wondered. Well, embalmers aren't even considered people anyway, the child grumbled, stretching. Suddenly, an ominous premonition made Bu Yunseol freeze. The child's gaze turned towards the bamboo forest, where a strange aura emanated. Their eyes widened, realizing something was wrong. Without a moment's hesitation, Bu Yunseol dashed towards the forest. Their small legs churned through the silent night. And then, the child abruptly stopped. Before the horrifying scene that unfolded, Bu Yunseol could only gape, their entire body trembling. Bu Jianyang collapsed, 2 streams of bloody tears streaming down his fading face. From afar, Bu Yunseol screamed in horror. Grandpa! The child rushed to support him, disbelieving. How? How could this happen? While Bu Jianyang faintly called his grandchild's name. Yes, it's me, Grandpa. Bu Yunseol sobbed, while he could only painfully utter an apology. Bu Jianyang knew he wouldn't make it, gasping his last words. This old man must go now. If I die, don't be an embalmer anymore. He coughed up a mouthful of blood, making Bu Unseol cry out in panic. Bu Unseol begged him to stop talking, but he cut him off, sternly calling out his full name. No. Bu Unseol, listen carefully. With his last bit of strength, he instructed. Absolutely. Do not seek revenge. His dying words struck Bu Unseol like lightning, leaving him stunned. With tear-filled eyes, the child's lips trembled, trying to respond. But then, rage erupted, his eyes burning red. Bu Unseol screamed, I can't. They harmed you. I can't forgive them. The child's small hand clutched his robe tightly, his voice filled with determination. If not, then I will follow you. Didn't you always say the afterlife is no different from this world? Bu Unseol declared he would rather live with his grandpa in the afterlife than remain here alone. His grandchild's words shook Bu Jianyang. He thought to himself that he could no longer depart peacefully. He made one last plea, hoping Bu Unseol would go far away and know one thing, that the time we spent together made me happier than anything else. With his last words, his hand went limp, slipping from his grandchild's body. Bu Jianyang took his last breath, lying motionless in a pool of blood. Bu Unseol stared blankly at his blood-stained hand, whispering his grandpa's name in vain. Bu Jianyang lay there, motionless amidst the cold snow. Tears silently streamed down Bu Unseol's face. His lifeless eyes stared into the void. Pain and despair were etched deeply into every feature. Kneeling before his grandpa's corpse, Bu Unseol thought, Your instruction not to seek revenge was to protect me, wasn't it? His trembling hand gently caressed the face of the deceased. But his eyes flared with a fierce red glow. I cannot do it. Tears of hatred welled up, carrying a vow of vengeance. With the eye of an embalmer, Bu Unseol began to analyze. Both of his grandpa's arms had been severed simultaneously. The enemy had used an upward reverse sword slash, an extremely rare technique. Furthermore, as his hand brushed over his grandpa's eyelids, he realized those sword strikes had also pierced his eyes. A cold smile flickered, and Bu Unseol had his first conclusion. This vicious sword art was undoubtedly a demonic technique, specifically Tianyu Jia Shu. On his grandpa's back were 93 hidden weapon marks, far exceeding the limits of Wanhua Feng Bao. This wasn't multiple attackers, but a type of fragrant qi that could unleash hundreds of hidden weapons. Continuing the examination, he discovered unusual discoloration under the tongue and dark bruises inside the fingernails. Those were the unmistakable signs of the potent poison Furo Shuedu. The enemy had mastered Tianyu Jia Shu and possessed the fragrant qi Yijue Jing. Bu Unseol thought, the enemy could also handle the potent poison of the Furo Shuedu lineage, a figure of the demonic path. There certainly weren't many people like this. Bu Unseol's gaze sharpened, making a resolute decision. I will definitely. The image of his deceased grandpa, Bu Jianyang, appeared in his mind. Bu Unseol squeezed his eyes shut, suppressing his immense pain. Definitely find them. His eyes opened, burning red and streaming bloody tears. A tear mixed with blood fell onto the registration paper. The wet mark spread, revealing the words Jiang Sect next to the empty fingerprint box. At the demonic hall, Bu Unseol sat opposite two gatekeepers to complete the procedures. The man with the goatee sneered. Ha, Jiang Sect again? Probably came here, got scared seeing the indenture contract, and ran off, didn't they? He impatiently snapped. Hey, if you're not going to stamp it, stop putting on a show and get lost. But then he suddenly froze, astonished by the scene unfolding. Bu Unseol bit hard into his finger until blood spurted out, his bloodshot eyes blazing with fury. Both men were stunned by that crazy and resolute action. When Grandpa died, Bu Unseol thought, blood from his injured foot seeping onto the floor. My life completely collapsed. His bleeding finger pressed firmly onto the paper, and the only thing left was the path of revenge. The two men were still bewildered. Bu Unseol continued his thoughts. So this tournament. The man with the goatee swallowed, breaking into a cold sweat at the aura of the person opposite him, will be the beginning of everything. Bu Unseol stood up, clenching his fists with iron resolve. The righteous faction and the demonic faction, the war between the two dominant forces of the martial world, had dragged on for many years. On one side was the righteous faction, led by the Wulin Alliance, pursuing justice. On the other side was the demonic faction, gathered around the demonic sect, a place that only worshipped absolute power. These two forces had long maintained a fragile balance, but the righteous faction acted first to break the deadlock, giving birth to a generation of great righteous masters. Feeling threatened, the demonic sect immediately devised a plan to consolidate its forces. Without hesitation, the 10 Great Demonic Venerables plan was launched. 10 prodigies would be selected, regardless of their background, to inherit the demonic sect's supreme martial arts. This groundbreaking call attracted countless young martial artists to flock to the demonic sect. Amidst the bustling crowd, Bu Unseol was present, observing everywhere. The martial artists gathered here, each exuding an extraordinary aura. Bu Unseol thought to himself, Many people here give off an unusual feeling. In the young embalmer's mind, the goal remained unchanged. Is anyone here connected to Hongxi, the one who killed my grandfather? The name Hongxi haunted his mind. That guy is definitely an unfathomable master. To get revenge, I must also become a master. But now I belong to no sect or school. Bu Unseol clenched his fists, his eyes burning with a bloody glint. Becoming a successor, demonic venerable is the only way to quickly become strong. Suddenly, a surprised ah echoed from the crowd. A burly man with white hair strode imposingly between two rows of guards. He roared, his aura terrifying. I am Chief Instructor Hyokrion Aung, Jingang Suiyan. The martial students buzzed with excitement, disbelieving their eyes as they recognized him as Jingang Shuiyan. Hyokrion Yung declared in a harsh voice that this place was to select the most outstanding prodigies of the demonic path. Only those who passed all the trials prepared by the main hall would officially become successor candidates. Bu Yunseol quietly listened to the introduction of the first trial. The masters of Mo Tian would examine each person's bone structure and muscle. A martial student exclaimed in surprise, deeming this test absurd and preferring a martial arts tournament instead. Immediately after, a burly man shrieked as a judge touched. The hat-wearing judge coldly declared, "You pass. Come here." Bu Yunseol thought to himself that perhaps a martial arts competition wasn't necessary and wondered about this bone structure test. When he stepped forward, the judge spoke. "You've arrived." The hat-wearing man, without an extra word, placed his hand on Bu Yunseol's shoulder to examine him. The moment he touched him, the judge was stunned. No, this person. He realized with horror that the boy's bone structure and muscles were completely ruined. It was strange for such a person to participate in the competition, but the judge sensed something unusual. Suddenly, Bu Yunseol's eyes glowed red, emitting a terrifying surge of killing intent. The judge broke out in a cold sweat. He was certain this killing intent was real. Nevertheless, he clicked his tongue and turned away. "I still cannot let you pass." Bu Yunseol calmly accepted the result, as if he had anticipated it. He recalled that all he had learned was how to bathe corpses. How could he possibly pass this trial? But in his eyes, an unshakable determination shone. It can't end like this. A desperate thought echoed as the first trial officially closed. A martial student gritted his teeth, unable to accept the truth. A young martial student furiously yelled, "How can this be?" He directly questioned the chief instructor. If the demonic sect's successor is chosen solely based on bone structure and muscles, then why hold a grand assembly? Hyokrion Ung calmly replied. Unfair? He explained that the most important thing in martial arts is one's innate constitution, and the demonic sect held the assembly precisely to find such prodigies. You, who couldn't even pass the most basic bone structure test, dare to speak of unfairness? Hyokrion Jung asked coldly, even as the martial student desperately begged for a chance. The chief instructor's eyes flashed with an imposing golden light. "Don't worry," he said, while another martial student with fiery eyes listened intently. In the second trial, prodigies who can cultivate martial arts, despite weak innate constitutions, will be chosen. Hyokrion Jung declared grandly. "From now on, we will begin the second trial." The chief instructor turned his back, his voice becoming deadly. "You will slaughter each other, and you must survive." His final declaration sowed terror among the crowd. "Until only one person remains," the martial students whispered in shock. "Kill each other? We're all from the demonic path. Is this really a trial? Are they serious?" The spear-wielding martial student from earlier merely sneered. "Ha, so that's how it is." His eyes glowed red as he thought to himself, "This is fine. I have to kill anyway." His killer gaze immediately locked onto two martial students standing nearby. He tightened his grip on the saber hilt. "I'll start with you two," he roared, killing intent erupting. Instantly, he shot forward, the sharp tip of his saber aimed directly at his prey. "Die!" The attacker's roar filled Qilong with utter terror. The martial artist gripped his great saber tightly, preparing to deliver the finishing blow. With surging killing intent, Wei Unqiang brutally swung his weapon. The sharp blade sliced into his opponent, fresh blood splattering everywhere. He growled with delight. "Finally. Today I've killed you." "Qilong." The victim uttered his own name with his last breath, then called out the perpetrator's name. Wei Unqiang. From afar, Bu Unseol, with his eyes bandaged, seemed to be analyzing every trajectory of the slash. In his final moments, Qilong horrifyingly realized, "He really killed me. My blood, my organs," Bu Unseol murmured. "You avoided the ribs and aimed straight for the heart." He continued to analyze. "Your bones might be weak, but your reflexes and agility are very impressive." Wei Unqiang arrogantly impaled his opponent's corpse high, challenging, "Anyone who wants to end up like this guy, come at me. I, Wei Unqiang, will take you all on." Hyokrion Jung calmly remarked, "Good initiative, but not very perceptive. Just a bunch of trash." The assistant standing nearby thought to himself, showing oneself to be too dangerous in this battle. It was like painting a target on one's back, but it would provoke others to act. Another martial artist began to panic. What should I do if it continues like this? In extreme fear, that person frantically swung their sword, screaming, "Die!" He was stunned to realize he had accidentally taken another life. I didn't mean to. A fatal wound caused the panicked martial artist to collapse in pain. Hyokreon-young observed the slaughter with cold eyes, thinking to himself, the less these kids are accustomed to death, the more they fear it, and the arena quickly drowned in a sea of blood and screams. Faced with the scene of slaughter, a martial artist clutched his head in panic. The other participants had lunged at each other in a fight to the death, and the fear of death easily paralyzed their reason. From above, Hyokreon-young slightly furrowed his brow, as if he had discovered something. He let out a low, meaningful chuckle. The assistant standing behind him also showed surprise and interest. In the crowd, another martial artist with a black headband remained calm. Hyokreon-young thought to himself, it turns out there are still some who aren't complete fools. Amidst the bloody arena, Bu Yunseol and the martial artist with the black headband were the only two standing outside the fray. Another life fell into a pool of blood. Bu Yunseol observed coldly, silently judging them as fools. He believed they had lost their reason due to fear, while only one person was allowed to survive. Hyokreon-young also realized that the key to the test was not killing, but survival. Bu Yunseol recalled the teaching, if you remain calm and think thoroughly, you can overcome it. Memories of the day his grandfather taught him to face corpses flooded back, reinforcing his determination to survive at all costs. Back in reality, he calmly took the hand of a corpse to examine it. Suddenly, a martial artist swung a chain weapon and lunged to attack him. The martial artist paused, wondering why that pathetic-looking person could sit still amidst the charnel ground. But Bu Yunseol completely ignored him, his mind solely focused on analyzing the wounds on the corpse. Disregarded, the martial artist went mad, roared, and swung his weapon, determined to take Bu Yunseol's life. The martial artist's iron ball shot straight towards Bu Yunseol, who was sitting beside the corpse. The weapon, carrying a howling force, was determined to take a life in one blow. But the attack narrowly missed, only shattering the ground. The attacker burst into mocking laughter. "Ha ha, what's that? That box? Are you a funeral merchant or something?" Despite the insults, Bu Yunseol remained motionless, completely ignoring him. A memory suddenly flooded back. The image of young Yunseol many years ago. He was carefully opening a wooden box, a gift from his late grandfather. Inside was a happy birthday card, a message that made him silently call out, "Grandpa." The memory faded, and Bu Yunseol's eyes in the present glowed blood red. He slowly stood up, his large and imposing figure overshadowing the stunned enemy. The martial artist, though trembling, still managed to growl a challenge. "What now? Let's see." He hadn't even finished his sentence. "What do you think you can do with a saber like that?" Suddenly, a shadow flashed past, a sword gleamed, and another participant was cut down. The martial artist with the chain weapon hadn't even understood what happened before he collapsed at the stranger's feet. The mysterious swordsman coldly stated, "No need to thank me for helping. Having a useless person like you attract attention is actually beneficial to me." Bu Yunseol merely bowed his head in silence, offering no reply. The stranger narrowed his glowing golden eyes, assessing, "You seem sharp-eyed, but you look like you've never studied martial arts." He sneered, letting out a threatening laugh. "I can kill someone like you anytime." Bu Yunseol maintained an impassive expression, silently observing. From afar, Hyokreon-young mused, "That guy, he's carrying Shijing. Who is he to bear the legacy of Mukyeon, who was once called the greatest Luo-ren?" Hyokreon-young revealed, "His name is Nyung-un-gang. Rumor has it he found Mukyeon's secret manual and soared deep in the mountain." He continued to analyze, with the image of the Grandmaster Mukyeon appearing. Though self-taught, his techniques are still immature and full of flaws. But currently, he can be considered Mukyeon's only disciple. Although his foundation is weak, he is still a strong contender for the 10 great demonic sects. I suspect he might even win. Hyokreon-young mused. But for an amateur like him to wield Seo, Jeong is truly a waste. Still, no one here is stronger than him, the assistant replied. "That's right, unless some major surprise occurs," the assistant muttered. Indeed. At the same time, Bu Yunseol was examining a corpse, thinking, "The cuts on this body are quite crude." Tragic screams echoed throughout the selection area, signaling the massacre's end. Amidst the battlefield, Nyung-un-gang smiled triumphantly. Just as expected, his cold gaze fixed forward. "So you're the last one standing." The entire arena was littered with corpses, with only 2 figures standing opposite each other. Nyung-un-gang provoked, "Just kill you. And I'll also be a candidate for the 10 great demonic sects. Come at me." Bu Yunseol observed silently, his face showing no change in expression. He secretly assessed. This guy is the strongest here. But then, his eyes glowed with a deadly red hue. But, I've seen through his weakness. Nyung Ungang wiped the blood from his sword, his face still full of self-satisfaction. He squinted at Bu Unseol. I didn't expect you to survive until the very end. Amidst the graveyard he himself created, the final confrontation was about to begin. He sneered, extending a challenging hand. Now, just kill you, and I'll also become one of the 10 great demonic sects. Come. Facing the challenge, Bu Yunseol remained still, silent as a ghost. Bu Yunseol thought to himself, that man was the strongest in this training ground. He tightened his grip on the sword hilt, calculations already forming in his mind. But then, he smiled confidently. He had analyzed the entire battlefield and memorized his every sword stroke through the corpse. I can definitely win. With that, Bu Yunseol donned his face mask and charged straight towards Nyung Ungang. Nyung Ungang sneered. Let's see what you've got. He swung a powerful sword strike, but Bu Yunseol deftly dodged it. Nyung Ungang frantically unleashed a series of slashes, forcing Bu Yunseol onto the defensive. From afar, Hyokreon Yung scoffed. Ha! Only clumsy dodging. It's a miracle you've survived this long. The assistant, however, had a different observation. At first glance, he seems overwhelmed. But if you look closely, at the end of each attack, he subtly shifts his body to avoid fatal wounds. The assistant realized in shock. Could it be that he memorized the sword paths by examining the corpses? His observational skills are truly astonishing, the assistant exclaimed as he saw Bu Unseol's eyes glow red amidst the battle. Despite the blood flowing from his shoulder, Bu Yunseol calmly spoke. What a pathetic sword. After all those attacks, you only managed to cut off a few scraps of flesh. Nyung Ungang was stunned. What? The assistant worried. Is he provoking him? Dodging is good, but counterattacking is another matter. In that state, it's very difficult to launch a proper attack. Nyung Ungang roared in anger. I intended to let you live a little longer, but this arrogance. Do you want to die so quickly? As you wish. Nyung Ungang roared, charging forward with overwhelming killing intent. Bu Yunseol stood still, feeling his opponent closing in. He's coming. His blood-stained face shone with determination. There's only one chance. Bu Yunseol's thoughts flashed back to when he examined the corpses on the battlefield. He had noticed a deadly pattern. His fatal blows always target vital points. Specifically, Nyung Ungang's targets were always the heart and head, so when he has killing intent, his sword will definitely aim for the upper body. Bu Unseol calculated while dodging. Nyung Ungang smirked, believing victory was already in his grasp, but in that instant, Bu Yunseol's eyes glowed red, and a sharp point flashed in his hand. A warm voice from the past echoed in his mind. Seol. Memories flooded back. His grandfather, Bu Janyang, had once taught, the heavenly swelling acupoint is a spot even masters find difficult to train. Even a child, if they put all their strength into attacking it, can take down an adult. Back in reality, Bu Unseol poured all his strength into the sharp point, his eyes gleaming with a deadly glint. Fresh blood splattered through the air. Nyung Ungang was stunned. Bu Yunseol's sharp point was deeply embedded in a vital point on his neck. He collapsed to the ground, blood gushing from the fatal wound. Bu Unseol gasped for breath, his whole body swaying from exhaustion after the decisive attack. Standing amidst countless corpses, he wondered. So, is it over? From above, the chief instructor's assistant couldn't hide his astonishment. What a surprise! Hyokreon Yung narrowed his eyes, his voice somewhat disappointed. I had high hopes because it was Mukian's sword art. Chief Instructor Hyokreon Yung roared. Bu Unseol of Shajing Swedian? Second test, you passed. Before collapsing, Bu Yunseol's eyes glowed red with blood vengeance. In his hazy consciousness, a familiar voice echoed, calling his name, Seol. It was his grandfather, Bu Janyang, searching for him aimlessly. Seol, where are you? Young Yunseol's innocent face beamed with joy. Grandpa. The boy rushed forward, reaching out towards the beloved figure. I'm here, Grandpa. I'm here. But his grandfather only replied with a pained voice. I can't see you, leaving the boy stunned. Bu Yunseol's eyes in reality snapped open, etched with horror. Cruel memories flooded back. The image of his beloved grandfather with bleeding eyes. I can't see you. Extreme pain and fear choked his mind. Bu Yunseol gasped for breath, waking up with a start from the nightmare. He collapsed onto the floor, bewildered to realize he was no longer in the arena. The sound of ocean waves lapped gently. He was on a wooden boat. Waking up in the ship's cabin, Bu Unseol muttered, It seems I'm on a ship. Did I faint? He checked his carefully bandaged wounds, surprised that the pain had almost completely disappeared. Anyway, he looked around. He recognized familiar faces, those who had passed the first test. One of them gave him a contemptuous sneer. Bu Yunseol merely lowered his gaze, thinking. This was an expected reaction. Someone ordered the remaining candidates to disembark. The wide-brimmed hat supervisor announced they had arrived at the next challenge. That place was called Du Lu, Hell Road, a deadly island with jagged rocks. The colossal wooden ship slowly docked at the desolate island. The supervisor coldly declared, "This is hell." He turned his back, gesturing for everyone to follow him. The entire island appeared, stark and terrifying under the twilight. The supervisor pointed to the cliff face, instructing everyone to return their gear, change clothes, and enter. The candidates, including Bu Yunseol, were ordered to choose a cave as their dwelling. Bu Yunseol observed silently, his gaze unperturbed. He glanced at the others who were excitedly discussing their new dwellings. Suddenly, an argument broke out as two female candidates vied for a cave. While another tried to intervene, Bu Yunseol secretly thought they were too careless. He suddenly realized that many who passed the previous round were elegantly dressed. Bu Yunseol speculated. Could it be that most of them are descendants of prestigious families? He bitterly concluded that the previous round was merely to eliminate those without backing. Deep in thought, Bu Yunseol was startled when the supervisor suddenly appeared right behind him. "You're unusually slow," he said. "This is no time to dawdle." The supervisor looked directly at him and called his name. "Bu Yunseol, I suspected from your gaze. Let's see what you'll choose here. Decide quickly." Bu Yunseol decisively declared. "Then I'll take that one." He pointed towards a dark, shabby cave entrance. Another candidate frowned, muttering contemptuously, "Choosing such a shabby place. How disgusting." The supervisor smiled meaningfully again, thinking of the name Bu Yunseol. Indeed, a prodigy, he secretly praised. He knew well that the cave's dirty exterior was merely a disguise for a spacious interior that was easy to defend and hard to attack. Most overlooked it, but you observed very carefully, the supervisor said with satisfaction. "Good. Prepare immediately." Bu Yunseol quickly changed into a black martial arts uniform, his gaze sharp. Soon after, all candidates were gathered to be briefed on the new rules. The supervisor pointed to the map, introducing the 10 martial arts halls scattered throughout the challenge area. He emphasized, "You can learn all or just one. The choice is entirely yours." Amidst the crowd, Bu Yunseol maintained a pensive expression as he heard about the unbelievably free schedule. He secretly doubted that a place called Hell would ever let them train so peacefully. Meanwhile, the other candidates had begun a lively discussion, completely unguarded. One excitedly suggested, "Of course, we're going to Huobao Jiantang. I heard it's the strongest place." Bu Yunseol quietly watched the crowd flocking in the same direction, towards Huobao Jiantang. He knew that place was said to belong to the strongest of the 10 great masters. But, he told himself, what I need now isn't advanced techniques, because I have no foundation to begin with. His eyes shone with determination. And then, while everyone else ran in one direction, Bu Yunseol alone turned onto a completely different path. Bu Yunseol advanced alone towards an old wooden house nestled in the secluded forest. His gaze reflected deep thought as he observed the place. He thought to himself, this dilapidated place, is it really a martial arts dojo? Nangya Pavilion, a fallen dojo that once produced countless renowned masters. Bu Yunseol recalled his grandfather's stories about the martial arts world. "So, I'll be here." Just as he made up his mind, he suddenly lost his balance. He looked down in astonishment at the violently shaking ground. What the hell is this? Bu Yunseol was stunned as a massive mass of earth and rock emerged right in front of him. From within the earth, a human head surfaced and asked, "Have you come here because you wish to become one of the 10 great martial masters?" That person was Sao, the secret pavilion master of Nangya Pavilion. Bu Yunseol faced the strange man, regaining his composure after the shock. He cupped his hands in a salute. "Yes, I have come to learn the martial arts of Nangya Pavilion." Sao squinted, disdainfully assessing Bu Yunseol from head to toe. He flatly refused. "Go back. I have no intention of teaching a frail wretch like you." Bu Yunseol replied, "I heard that the martial arts here can grant the strongest vitality in the world." Sao warned, "Our techniques begin with body reconstruction. For you, death would come in less than a day." He coldly dismissed him. "If you understand, then leave." In response to the refusal, Bu Yunseol unexpectedly prostrated himself, bowing his head to the ground, astonishing Sao. "What are you doing?" He looked up, resolute. "Since you insist on teaching me yourself, as a disciple, I must perform the proper etiquette." Sao was utterly speechless at his twisted logic, only able to utter, "You madman." Sao let out a sigh, looking resigned. Finally, he conceded, "All right, I will teach you." He abruptly emerged from the ground, revealing his muscular physique, and clarified, "But I'm only teaching you because it's an order from the demonic sect." He was Sao, the secret pavilion master of Nangya Pavilion, and from now on, Bu Yunseol had to call him master. Just as Bu Unseol began to introduce himself, Sao coldly raised a hand to stop him. "No, you are merely trainee number 1, he declared, leaving Bu Unseol stunned. Sao clenched his fist, spiritual energy surging. "Forget the trivialities, let's begin now." Instantly, a blinding flash of light shot straight into Bu Unseol's eyes, leaving him no time to react. His pupils dilated in extreme bewilderment. In an instant, his eyes were completely enveloped in pitch blackness. Bu Unseol panicked, realizing he was lost in the darkness. "I can't see anything." While he was still bewildered, Sao's voice echoed, "Don't worry. I've merely temporarily sealed your sight with a secret technique of this place." That was the necessary process to master the way of the wild beast. Bu Yunseol wondered, and Sao explained it was a martial art that maximized the senses and granted the practitioner the reflexes of wild beasts. He continued, "This path was extremely difficult, its achievements depending entirely on each individual's enlightenment. For that very reason, the number of people daring to attempt it grew smaller and smaller. However, if you succeed," Sao left the sentence hanging, and in Bu Unseol's eyes, the image of a powerful figure gleamed. "You will truly possess the soul of a wild beast." Sao smirked grimly, concluding with a deadly warning. Though, most die before they ever reach that point. After blinding Bu Unseol, Sao coldly turned on his heel and left. He announced, "It will take about an hour for you to get used to being blind. I'll be back then," he said with a smirk, then vanished, leaving Bu Unseol alone in the deserted training area. Bu Unseol muttered to himself in confusion. People say that when you lose your sight, your other senses become sharper, but that doesn't seem to be true. He recalled his master's words, that it usually takes an hour to adapt. But for him, an hour was too slow. "I have to get used to this as quickly as possible." Even so, his body couldn't keep up with his will, constantly stumbling and losing balance in the darkness. He suddenly shivered, thinking that this place was full of martial artists, and if he were ambushed in this state, for a moment, he imagined a dark figure wielding a weapon lunging from behind. Instinctively, Bu Yunseol immediately spun around to dodge. The dodge caused him to lose his balance and fall flat on the ground. And in that very moment, he had an epiphany. "I understand. When sight disappears, the most important thing is the sense of balance." Meanwhile, outside, Sao thought to himself that his student must be fumbling and lost, but then he paused, surprised to see Bu Unseol moving. He muttered, "This kid is truly unusual. A normal person, when losing their sight, would patiently wait for their other senses to awaken. Yet this child is moving frantically, even creating imaginary opponents to fight. Perhaps that's why he can progress at such an unbelievable speed." Bu Yunseol moved swiftly through the rain. He was also adapting very quickly. Sao smirked. "So you've gotten used to it. In that case, from now on, try dodging my sword." A sharp surge of sword energy tore through the night. Its power swept across a vast area. 3 days later, Bu Unseol collapsed onto the muddy ground. Under the ceaseless rain, he staggered to his feet to face his master. Blindfolded, he could only rely on instinct to charge forward and attack. But an invisible strike mercilessly knocked him down. Sao thought, it's been 3 days, he should be questioning it, but he just silently endures the blows. His face was covered in mud, but Bu Yunseol still firmly gripped his sword. Sao asked, "Why don't you ask anything? Aren't you curious about how to dodge or the techniques?" He replied, "You said the essence of Nanga Pavilion lies in enlightenment, so I believe all your actions have a reason." The answer stunned Sao for a moment. Then he smiled with satisfaction. "Indeed, you are right. Then let's continue." Sao charged forward to attack once more. But this time, the world in Bu Yunseol's eyes had completely changed. He whispered, "I can feel it. No, I can see it. The sword's path. I can only see it, but not dodge it." In that case, Bu Unseol silently resolved. Instead of dodging, he swung his sword, deciding to directly confront Sao's attack. "Block it!" he roared in his mind, pouring all his strength into the moment of impact. Bu Yunseol's face was taut with effort, determined not to retreat an inch. In contrast, Sao's face clearly showed extreme astonishment. He couldn't believe it. He just blocked my soundless sword technique? In just 3 days? Sao's thoughts echoed amidst the dawn. After successfully parrying the blow, Bu Unseol was still severely shaken, thrown far back. Exhausted, sitting on the ground, he wondered why parrying was so difficult when Sao offered a bamboo tube. "Here, drink this." "Thank you." Bu Yunseol replied wearily and took the water tube. He began to drink, unaware that Sao's gaze was fixed on him. "This isn't water." He realized with shock that a warm energy was spreading throughout his body, healing all injuries. Sao thought it was the heavenly spring water he had cherished his entire life, but he felt no waste, because the person he had waited for his entire life had finally appeared, the second prodigy of this world. The sky cleared again, signaling the start of a new training phase. Sharp, powerful sword strikes echoed in the air. Bu Yunseol, after being restored, trained with completely different strength. He unleashed a powerful slash, while Sao quietly appeared from behind. With an excited smile, Sao lunged forward. Take this move too! Bu Yunseol unleashed a dazzling sword strike, pouring all his strength into the attack. Sao roared with excitement. Not yet? While Bu Yunseol stood firm, his eyes showed fatigue but remained unwavering. With an extraordinary effort, Bu Yunseol blocked Sao's sword strike, causing energy to erupt. He panted, thinking, why isn't he attacking anymore? Suddenly, Sao burst into hearty laughter. I can't believe the genius I've been searching for all this time was right before my eyes. In that moment, Bu Yunseol's eyes gradually regained their clarity. He realized his vision had become clear again, just as Sao's voice rang out. Bu Yunseol. Sao approached, placed a hand on his shoulder, and offered, forget about becoming one of the 10 great demonic generals. Become an official disciple of the main sect. If you do that, I will turn you into one of the strongest masters of the demonic path within the next 10 years. Bu Yunseol pondered. Becoming a top master. This offer might not be a lie. But the image of the monster that had murdered his grandfather appeared in his mind, an enemy far beyond his current level. He silently resolved. In that situation, I cannot be satisfied with just the martial arts of Nangya Pavilion. Bu Yunseol's gaze sharpened, showing an unshakable determination. He raised his head and declared firmly, I will become one of the 10 great demonic generals. Sao was stunned by the unexpected answer. He snorted coldly. If it's to learn all the martial arts of the 10 great demonic sects, forget it. Even the heavenly demon couldn't do that. Sao explained that each type of martial art requires a different physique, and focusing on one is the fastest path. Bu Yunseol just quietly bowed his head. I apologize. Sao looked at his student, thinking, so he won't change his mind. Sao sighed, finally making a decision. All right, he said. From now on, you will learn a different martial art. Bu Yunseol looked bewildered. Huh? But I've only just learned the basics of Nangya Pavilion. Sao offered no further explanation, responding only with action, rushing forward at terrifying speed. Bu Yunseol swung his sword to parry the sudden move, a dazzling light flashing. Sao smiled. You have learned the authentic techniques of the Beast Dao. He suddenly realized that all the sword strikes the boy had unleashed earlier were all rudimentary forms of the Beast Dao. Bu Yunseol bowed. Thank you, Elder. But Sao merely replied, no need to thank me. This is merely an order from the Mo Dian. But Elder also gave me spirit medicine, Bu Yunseol insisted. I will never forget this kindness. Forget it, he said. Bu Yunseol was stunned. Huh? Sao explained his philosophy. Such is the martial world. Whether it's kindness or enmity, it's best to forget. Bu Yunseol merely bowed his head in silence, pondering. Then he bowed deeply. Well, I'll be going now. Sao quietly watched Bu Yunseol's small figure gradually disappear into the distance. He looked up at the sky, muttering, seriously, where did such a hidden dragon come from? A storm of blood would soon sweep across hell. Bu Yunseol walked on, thinking to himself, perhaps because I've learned the Beast Dao, I perceive too much, exhausting myself even when doing nothing. If this continues, I won't be able to rest properly, he resolved. I must learn to control it. Bu Yunseol secretly made up his mind. I will try to suppress my senses as much as possible during normal times. He envisioned it as cutting off a flowing stream. Immediately, his eyes widened, showing intense concentration. This should be fine, Bu Yunseol thought to himself, feeling he had somewhat controlled his abilities. After that, he set off, examining the route while planning his next step. He reasoned that the Mo Dian couldn't keep everyone at the training ground forever. Time was running out. There's no other choice. Bu Yunseol affirmed his decision. His choice was to seek out the sect of the peerless martial arts grandmaster, who once rivaled the heavenly demon 700 years ago. That esteemed figure was the Huowu Sword Emperor, Shi Huoyun, and the strongest sect he founded among the 10 great demonic sects was the Huowu Sword Sect. Standing before the majestic gate, Bu Yunseol couldn't help but exclaim, compared to Nangya Pavilion's training ground, this place is nothing short of a palace. He raised his hand to knock, but a strange sensation made him pause. The door opened, and a man in red was surprised. A visitor at this hour? Who could it be? He was stunned when he recognized the person standing before him. You are. Bu Yunseol cupped his hands in a salute, stating clearly, I have come to learn the sword techniques of the Huowu sword sect. The disciple in red coldly replied, follow me. As they walked, he explained that the sect's sword techniques were incredibly profound and thus very time-consuming. He mentioned that others had already entered the intermediate hall and asked why Bu Yunseol was half a month late. Bu Yunseol honestly replied that he had been learning martial arts at Nangya Pavilion for the past 2 weeks, which surprised the other, who then asked about Wild Sword. Although Bu Unseol confirmed it, the disciple secretly remained skeptical, not believing that even a gifted child could master the Beast Dao in just 2 weeks. The disciple in red thought to himself, perhaps Sao had just sent this kid away to avoid trouble. This person proudly introduced himself as Jingek, the instructor of the Huowu Sword Sect's Novice Hall. Jingek skeptically asked if Bu Unseol was sure he wanted to learn Huowu sword techniques, but the boy merely politely thanked him for his concern. Bu Yunseol firmly stated that he would learn the sword techniques of the Huowu sword sect. Jingek smirked, replying decisively, "Very well, in that case." Immediately, Jingek turned, creating a powerful gust of internal energy. He unrolled a scroll and declared that it contained the mental cultivation method of the Huowu 13 forms. Bu Yunseol stared blankly at the scribbled drawings on the scroll, unsure what to do. He then turned to ask Jingek directly, "What exactly am I supposed to do with this?" Jingek asked in surprise, "What are you saying? Don't tell me you can't read a sword manual, can you?" To Jingek's astonishment, Bu Unseol frankly admitted, "I cannot read it." He further explained that before coming here, he had never copied any kind of sword technique. Jingek, dumbfounded, confirmed, "So, you've never practiced swordsmanship before?" and received an affirmative answer. Jingek muttered. This matched the record stating he was a scholar, and his moves in battle didn't follow any particular sect. Nevertheless, the fact that he couldn't even read a basic sword manual still made Jingek find it hard to believe. But looking back, the boy's reflexes and keen perception when passing through the second hall were undeniable. Even his judgment in choosing a cave to survive, all indicated that he started from absolute zero. Jingek shivered, realizing that if such a genius were properly taught, his potential would be limitless. Thinking this, Jingek smiled, pointing to the text. "Even if you don't understand everything, you recognize the characters, right? Read this." On the scroll was the phrase, Nu Feng Quan Shen, Lu Dao Yi Ti, the method of relaxing the entire body and circulating qi. Jingek began the lesson. First, releasing the body means relaxing your muscles to move smoothly when using sword techniques, especially in your abdomen and hips. Bu Yunseol awkwardly tried to follow, like this, making Jingek secretly think that teaching basics at the Heavenly Demon Divine Soldiers selection ground was truly strange. Jingek directly corrected his posture. "Stand up straight. When you tense up, you lock your center of gravity. Calm your mind and flow naturally." Immediately, Bu Unseol assumed the stance perfectly, his eyes sharp. Jingek was astonished, thinking to himself, his posture is correct. He grasped it immediately after just one explanation. Unable to hide his excitement, he smiled and praised, "Good. Your posture is excellent." Jingek handed Bu Yunseol a sword to continue the lesson. Both were stunned for a moment as the sword was passed. Bu Yunseol gritted his teeth, focusing his entire spirit on the sword. A joyful moment as both master and disciple gave each other a thumbs up in approval. The boy gripped the sword hilt tightly, preparing to unleash his sword art. Bu Yunseol wielded the sword, each lightning-fast stroke drawing brilliant red streaks, demonstrating extraordinary comprehension. Jingek was stunned, with only one thought in his mind. Just as I thought. This kid, he couldn't believe his eyes. He has innate talent. Jingek gave the next command. "Now, imagine an opponent and perform the fire dance 13 forms." Bu Yunseol asked in surprise, "An opponent?" "That's right. It's the test to advance to the youth hall. I will sense the sword intent in your techniques." Bu Yunseol realized this was a test, secretly resolving. The opportunity came sooner than expected. I must prove myself here. He decisively took a firm step, his aura surging. "An imaginary enemy," Bu Yunseol murmured, "the one I must defeat." And dark energy began to pour from his body. In his mind, the image of the enemy appeared, a muscular phantom with glowing eyes and a blood-soaked sword. Bu Yunseol's eyes sharpened, his hands gripping the sword hilt tightly. He roared, "Opponent!" then began to perform the fire dance 13 forms. The first form, Wind Returns to Origin. Jingek stood afar, unable to help but be astonished. "Huh?" Bu Unseol continued to move, his sword strokes like powerful black streaks of light. Immediately, the third form Flowing Cloud Mist Barrier was unleashed with countless interwoven brilliant red sword strikes. Jingek exclaimed in shock in his thoughts. "Is that the fire dance 13 forms?" He recalled that the flowing cloud technique was supposed to be soft and flexible, like flowing clouds in water, but the version Bu Unseol displayed was ferocious and full of killing intent. This kid's sword intent was unbelievably sharp. Jingek wondered if he was deliberately altering the technique, something only a grandmaster would dare to do. However, this altered form contained an overwhelming killing intent. as if aimed at an irreconcilable enemy. Jingak couldn't understand what secret lay hidden behind this person, who could transform a righteous sword art into something so sinister. Meanwhile, Bu Yunseol also realized something was wrong. The trajectory of his blade was being reshaped by a different flow. He questioned himself, wondering if this was due to the Beast Path sword art resurfacing. The more he performed, the more distinct the imprint of the Beast Path became on the foundation of the Fire Dance Gate. Bu Yunseol struggled internally. He knew that if he continued, this would no longer be the Fire Dance 13 forms. I must force it back to its original form, he resolved to regain control. His eyes glowed red in an effort to concentrate his will intensely. But at that very moment, the surging killing intent summoned a dark phantom from the depths of his mind. It was the image of the one who had murdered his grandfather. Bu Unseol's eyes blazed blood red, filled with seething hatred. He gritted his teeth, his uncontrollable rage erupting. In his mind, Bu Yunseol charged directly at the enemy's illusion. Fire Dance 13 forms, 7th form. Overturning seas and 4 suns. The illusion faced the blazing sword strike rushing towards it. The speed of the battle was pushed to its extreme. His continuous slashes formed a brilliant red net. Bu Yunseol thought to himself, this speed was faster than any opponent he had ever encountered. He attacked relentlessly, cornering the illusion. The pressure of the deathmatch forced him to strain himself. He told himself he couldn't give the opponent any opening to dodge. All remaining forms, unleashed at once, Bu Yunseol poured all his strength into the final attack. A massive blue sword aura engulfed the enemy. The blade finally reached its target. Crimson killing intent erupted from the struck illusion. Bu Yunseol's face showed no wavering as he delivered the finishing blow. From within the surge of killing intent, the silhouettes of fierce beasts began to materialize. The phantom of the one who had murdered his grandfather rose, screaming within the attack. The battle ended, leaving only drops of dark liquid falling onto the wooden floor. Bu Yunseol's sweat-drenched hand trembled as he released the sword hilt. He thought to himself, in the end, he still lost. But then, a confident smile suddenly flashed across his exhausted face. You passed, Jingek's voice rang out, startling Bu Yunseol. The examiner explained, what we evaluate is the ability to comprehend and apply the Huawu 13 forms in actual combat. Jingak lightly tossed 2 wooden swords, his eyes full of hidden meaning. And you've shown more than enough, he said as Yunseol picked up his sword. Bu Yunseol gripped his weapon, still filled with doubt. That was an excellent performance, Jingak declared. Go to the intermediate hall. Bu Yunseol silently thanked senior brother Jingak for diligently teaching someone as ignorant as himself. He formally cupped his hands in a bow. Thank you for everything. Jingak smiled back. Keep practicing diligently from now on. But then his smile suddenly faded, and his gaze turned serious. And your sword carries an extremely powerful murderous aura. Be careful not to let it consume you. The sudden warning stunned Bu Yunseol, and cold sweat broke out. Watching the students retreating back, Jingak muttered, now I understand. To have absorbed such a brutal sword art in just half a month. He raised his hand in a salute, but his mind was still deep in thought. Perhaps because his learning speed is too high, that his promotion to the intermediate hall happened much faster than expected. Jingak's train of thought ended as Yunseol's hand touched the wooden door. The door to the intermediate hall opened, and a new challenge awaited. Jingak smiled smugly, believing that even the teacher of the intermediate hall. As soon as he stepped into the hall, Bu Yunseol was stopped by a voice. I don't know who you are, Qian Ungguang, the teacher of the intermediate hall, coldly stated. But all the spots are filled, so please leave. Would also be captivated by Bu Yunseol's talent. The door to the intermediate hall opened, and a new challenge awaited. Bu Yunseol stood alone in the hall, silently facing all gazes. The entire training hall fell silent, all attention focused on the newcomer. Qian Ungguang showed disdain. Taking more than 20 days to learn the Huawu sword art, you're just wasting your time here. Bu Yunseol calmly explained. I arrived late because I spent the first 15 days at Nangya Pavilion. The teacher was slightly surprised, muttering, Nangya Pavilion. Probably a kid skipping Beastway lessons. Nevertheless, he permitted, all right, find a seat, though I don't know if you can keep up. Qian Ungguang began his lecture on the Huawu Thunderous Roar Sword art, a sword technique requiring agility and precision. He emphasized that this was a difficult technique, and one could harm oneself if not careful. Instead of victory or defeat, I will assess your proficiency in wielding the sword. He clarified the criteria. Immediately after, he called out a disciple's name. Byo-kan, Seong, step forward and choose an opponent. Byo-kan Seong asked again with confidence, can I choose anyone? And received an affirmative answer. Without hesitation, he pointed directly at Bu Yunseol. Then, I choose this person. Byo-kan Seong reiterated. You yourself said I could choose anyone, upon seeing the teacher's expression. Qian Ungguang snapped. Reckless fool. Choose someone else immediately. Amidst the tense atmosphere, Bu Yunseol smiled and replied, I will fight. Byeokhanseong was stunned and asked again, but Bu Unseol had already boldly accepted the challenge. He explained that he had learned basic swordsmanship from teacher Jin, and believed that actual combat was the best way to improve. Teacher Qian Ungguang thought to himself, believing Bu Unseol was merely being stubborn out of false pride. After some deliberation, he made a decision. Qian Ungguang agreed, declaring that knowing one's own limits was a good virtue, and hoped Bu Yunseol would prove his strength. Byeokhanseong secretly gloated, seeing this as a heaven-sent opportunity to defeat a newcomer and solidify his position. Witnessed by their fellow disciples, both stood facing each other in the arena, ready for the match. Bu Yunseol calmly acknowledged his opponent's courage, but he also warned that courage alone was not enough. Just as Cheon Ungguang gave the signal to start, Byeokhanseong immediately charged forward, unleashing a powerful preemptive strike. Bu Unseol gently leaned aside, easily dodging the sword's path. Byeokhanseong showed excitement at his opponent's reflexes. Both rushed at each other, wooden swords clashing and sparking. Bu Yunseol, with sharp eyes, blocked Byeokhanseong's attack. Through the clash, Byeokhanseong sensed the immaturity in Bu Unseol's technique and smirked, convinced that his opponent was just a novice. He burst out laughing, mocking Bu Unseol's clumsiness, and declared he would unleash the Hwawu Thunderous Roar Sword. A storm of blazing yellow sword energy was unleashed, engulfing Bu Unseol amidst Byeokhanseong's arrogant laughter. His smile suddenly froze on his lips as he realized something was wrong. Byeokhanseong was horrified to realize that Bu Unseol was moving at an unimaginable speed, creating countless afterimages to dodge all of his moves. Byeokhanseong gritted his teeth, unable to conceal his fury. Meanwhile, instructor Cheon Ungguang secretly assessed, Byeokhan Seong, his swordsmanship is truly pathetic. On the other hand, that kid. He realized Bu Yunseol wasn't just dodging with speed, but with movements that almost seemed to predict the future, and a shocking hypothesis flashed in his mind. Could it be he's learned Shoudao? But no. Although Shoudao was the basic martial art of Longye Pavilion, it was actually a supreme technique that only grandmasters could comprehend. Cheon Ungguang immediately dismissed the thought. Even an unparalleled prodigy couldn't master it in 15 days. Thinking this, he decided to intervene. Stepping directly into the arena, he sternly told Unseol, if you only know how to dodge, you cannot be evaluated. I recall saying this match was to observe your swordsmanship, not your eyesight and reflexes. Hearing this, Bu Yunseol immediately stomped his foot to take a stance. He took his stance, the wooden sword in his hand ready to strike. His face maintained an unusually calm expression. Immediately, he darted forward, swinging a brilliant sword strike towards Byeokhanseong. The surrounding disciples exclaimed in astonishment, That's Huowu sword art. Byeokhanseong sneered. Humph. A move from Huowu sword art? Only one person with glowing red eyes noticed the abnormality. No, there's something subtly different. Ignoring it, Byeokhanseong laughed gleefully. I could block this move with my eyes closed. But Yunseol's sword strike suddenly transformed, stunning him. Huh? He realized in horror. What is this? Is this really Huowu sword art? This bastard. Did he intentionally hide his skills, modifying the sword art to mock me? Byeokhanseong thought to himself. Trying to get the instructor's attention to enter the intermediate hall directly, he glared bitterly at Bu Unseol, roaring in his mind. Damn it, at this rate, I'm the one who should advance to the intermediate hall. Byeokhanseong strained with all his might, unleashing Asura sword art. He unleashed the blood-shattering strike, a series of brutal slashes lunging towards Bu Yunseol. Cheon Ungguang calmly remarked, a killer move from the Asura sword sect. I never said only Huowu sword could be used. He narrowed his eyes, his thoughts continuing. But that child, to maintain balance on his feet in this situation. Even when facing the torrential attack, Bu Yunseol's footwork remained as steady as a rock. A flicker of astonishment appeared in Cheon Ungguang's eyes. This child, could he truly have learned Shoudao? Bu Unseol smirked upon hearing his opponent's roar. You brat, you're good at dodging. Byeokhanseong roared, his eyes blazing. But this is the end. Cheon Ungguang was stunned as he sensed a completely different aura. That is, Bu Unseol retaliated with a move imbued with a crimson-killing aura. Bloodwind Moon Annihilation. The two opposing sword auras clashed. A terrifying energy explosion erupted from the point of impact. The surrounding disciples were dazed by the power of the attack. The instructor also couldn't hide his extreme astonishment. The 13th form of Huowu sword art was completely overwhelmed by boundless extreme martial arts. Byeokhanseong collapsed, fresh blood gushing from the corner of his mouth. The match was decided. Bu Yunseol coldly watched Byeokhanseong fall after the finishing blow. He stood there, his gaze emotionless, the wooden sword still carrying the lingering echoes of the battle. The crowd of disciples was silent, terrified by the brutal outcome that had just unfolded. Byeokhan Seong lay motionless in a pool of blood, a question echoing in the silence. Is he dead? Bu Yunseol silently placed his wooden sword back on the rack. He stood with his arms crossed, calm as if nothing had happened, despite his opponent's corpse lying not far away. Instructor Cheon Eungwang secretly concluded, "He's dead." Struck in the vital acupoint Danzong, the corpse lay there as a grim confirmation of the harsh truth. Cheon Eungwang approached and questioned, "Are you originally a disciple of Langia Pavilion?" Bu Unseol replied, "No, sir." "So you mean you've completely mastered Beast Sword in just half a month?" Yunseol humbly replied, "I've only learned the basics." Cheon Eungwang sneered, "Basics? It seems Langia Pavilion has been teaching its disciples how to lie first these days." He brushed aside Yunseol's explanation. "Enough with the excuses. Get this thing out of here immediately." Other disciples began to murmur indignantly. Killing someone in a practice match. That's absurd. Shouldn't he be punished? Cheon Eungwang roared, silencing all noise. This place is a living hell. If you use a killing move, you should also be prepared to die by a counterattack. A cold announcement was made. The test will continue. The deadly atmosphere was immediately replaced by other brutal clashes. A disciple collapsed to the floor, exhausted. Another sat slumped, covered in blood, their weapon flung far away. The entire martial arts hall was once again plunged into the chaos of life and death battle. Instructor Cheon Eungwang coldly watched the defeated disciples. He declared, "You have failed the test. Leave here and find another martial arts hall." The disciples' pleas for another chance were extinguished by the definitive answer. Impossible. Cheon Eungwang explained that to practice Huo Wu sword, one needed innate talent, not just good physique. "The reason you failed is because you couldn't do it," he concluded. With a wave of his hand, he commanded, "Begone." The disciples dejectedly left the training hall in shame. Suddenly, Cheon Eungwang paused, realizing one person had yet to leave. He turned back, facing Bu Unseol, the only one still standing in the empty training hall. "Why aren't you leaving?" he asked, receiving the calm reply. "Do I have to leave too?" Cheon Eungwang confirmed. "You've won and passed the test. Proceed to the advanced hall." Bu Yunseol firmly replied, "If I have to go up, then I'll stay here." To the teacher's surprise, he explained that he hadn't learned anything yet from the intermediate hall. He refused the opportunity for advancement at the intermediate hall. Cheon Eungwang questioned, "You've mastered the beast sword art, yet you say you haven't learned anything?" Bu Yunseol simply confirmed it, making the teacher let out a skeptical laugh. Finally, Cheon Eungwang decided, "Very well. I will teach you the fire dance Azure Sword." However, he looked directly at Bu Unseol, warning, "I despise tricksters. If I find you learning any other sword art," his face darkened with killing intent as he growled, "I will chop off your head right here." 4 days later, Cheon Eungwang quietly observed with a pensive expression. He mused about this child. Despite teaching him for 4 days, his basic swordsmanship was almost non-existent. Yet, it was incredible that Bu Yunseol, a beginner in swordsmanship, could move like lightning, creating countless afterimages. The teacher's eyes revealed extreme astonishment. He realized the boy's persistence and obsession were terrifying, as if he would die if he couldn't grasp martial arts. Cheon Eungwang smiled faintly, finally understanding why he could master the beast sword art in just half a month. Bu Yunseol unleashed a powerful extreme thunderstrike, its golden sword energy enveloping everything. "Stop!" the teacher's shout rang out, making Bu Unseol freeze. Cheon Eungwang declared that he had grasped the essence of the Fire Azure Thunder Sword. But Bu Yunseol was still bewildered. He explained that this sword art was originally only for practicing body rotation and couldn't be used in actual combat. And yet, the teacher narrowed his eyes, looking directly at his student. He questioned, "You're using it as if you want to kill someone." Bu Unseol innocently replied, "Isn't that the purpose of swordsmanship?" Cheon Eungwang explained that demonic arts require killing intent, but the Fire Forest Master had abandoned the killing sword to reach a higher realm. He placed his hand on his forehead and warned that if he didn't abandon his killing intent, his martial arts would harm himself. Bu Yunseol suddenly realized his words were identical to what Instructor Jingik had once said. A painful memory flooded back. Cheon Eungwang admitted that he too had once lived by the killing sword, slaying without hesitation. Because of that path, his status, honor, and even his martial arts were ruined, submerged in the bloody sea of the past. Returning to the present, he advised Bu Yunseol to abandon his killing intent, as it was an obstacle on the path of true martial arts. "Seol," his voice deepened, "the past of those who live by the sword is stained with tragedy and misfortune. That is why people in the martial world are very reluctant to speak of their past." Bu Unseol, astonished, asked why he was telling him this story. The teacher sternly replied that he, too, once carried a killing sword within him. Then, Qian Ungguang asked for his name. He was Bu Unseol. Qian Ungguang suddenly realized that he was the survivor from the second hall whom Jingak had mentioned. He said with a serious face that Bu Yunseol had a very big problem. He anxiously asked what the problem was. Qian Ungguang bluntly declared that he had absolutely no foundation in martial arts. He explained that upon entering the upper hall, the gap between him and those prodigies who had trained in martial arts since childhood would only widen. To close that gap, you must quickly learn a supreme martial art to build a foundation for the fire dance sword art. Therefore, to close that gap, I will pass on Genre Musang, which I created myself. He confessed that he himself had failed during practice, severing all the nerves in his fingers. It was a sword art so dangerous that it could cause the practitioner to lose both hands. He presented a choice. Accept the risk of becoming crippled, instead of advancing to the upper hall. Did he still want to learn? For the purpose of revenge, Bu Yunseol did not hesitate. With eyes burning with hatred, he bowed in gratitude, vowing that he would gladly sacrifice even his soul. A month had passed since Bu Yunseol began comprehending Genre Musang until the day he left the intermediate hall. He thought to himself, although the instructor said it was fast, it was still longer than he had anticipated. After mastering basic swordsmanship in the elementary hall and advanced swordsmanship in the intermediate hall, the next path awaited. Bu Yunseol stood before the entrance of the advanced hall, where the most elite disciples gathered. His face shone with determination as he prepared to embark on a new challenge. The head instructor of the advanced hall was an old man with silver hair and a dignified demeanor. Bu Yunseol secretly noted that the atmosphere in the advanced hall was indeed different. He felt a powerful surge of energy from the disciples, completely unlike the intermediate hall. Their gazes no longer held contempt, surely because he had slain Bai Hanqing. Bu Unseol bitterly realized that embalming corpses earned contempt, but killing people earned respect and fear. The senior instructor spoke. So you are Bu Yunseol. I have heard of you. I am about to begin the lesson. Please find a seat. He announced to the class. Since there is a new disciple, I will reiterate the fire dance song and the 7 teachings. The 7 teachings were listed: stable footwork, upright posture, open chest, and straight back, and the initial move must not extend too far. Bu Yunseol suddenly realized that if he hadn't learned advanced swordsmanship in the intermediate hall, he wouldn't have been able to grasp these principles. When the lesson ended, the instructor called, Bu Yunseol, follow me for a moment. Bu Yunseol silently looked up. He quietly followed the instructor to the garden outside. The old man began to explain. Swordless defeats sword wielding means reaching a realm where one can defeat an armed opponent even without a weapon. In short, whether you have a sword or not, your swordsmanship will no longer be limited. Saying this, he gently broke off a willow branch. The senior instructor suddenly attacked Bu Yunseol with the willow branch. He asked, if one is suddenly attacked while unarmed, how does one execute swordsmanship? Bu Yunseol was stunned by the difficult question. He explained that the disciples in the advanced hall had all mastered swordsmanship and entered the realm of sword philosophy, and he warned that if he couldn't comprehend it, Bu Yunseol would be expelled immediately. Bu Yunseol mused. If there is no sword in hand, suddenly, a decisive glint flashed in his eyes. Then I will use the opponent's sword. He lunged forward, reaching out to seize the willow branch. His hand had almost grasped the target in the nick of time, but Bu Yunseol only snatched at thin air. He was utterly astonished. The instructor calmly remarked, too hasty a judgment. Bu Yunseol was startled to realize the old man had appeared right behind him at some point. He was secretly terrified because he couldn't predict the old man's movements at all. Bu Yunseol hadn't originally thought he could catch him, but he didn't expect to be unable to keep up with even a single small movement. He gritted his teeth and stomped his foot. If I can't show anything, I won't be able to stay here. I must push my beastly intuition to its limit, to read his movements. Employing all his senses, Bu Yunseol reached out once more. He growled in his mind. Just one more time. However, Bu Yunseol's efforts still failed, and he was mercilessly flung away. Bu Yunseol was sent flying, rolling several times on the dusty ground. He gritted his teeth, struggling to get up after the powerful attack. Despite being at a disadvantage, he still propped himself up with his hands on the ground, a tenacious smirk on his face. Suddenly, the senior instructor placed a hand on his shoulder, laughed heartily, and declared, "You passed." Bu Yunseol was bewildered, thinking to himself, "I passed? I haven't even touched the instructor." "Why?" the old man explained. "Because starting tomorrow, you will learn profound chi circulation. Come to the training ground before dawn, earlier than everyone else." Bu Yunseol immediately clasped his hands in a salute, replying in a serious tone, "Yes, I understand." The instructor, satisfied, turned and left, leaving the disciple alone. He looked at the willow branch in his hand, the weapon that had completely overwhelmed the young boy. His expression was pensive, as if re-evaluating the entire situation. He mused about the boy's nature. A wolf cub is still a wolf. Isn't that right? A smile of amusement briefly appeared on the old man's face. Amidst the brilliant dawn, he muttered, "Haha, this is getting more and more interesting." The lesson ended. Bu Yunseol stood alone in the forest, his mind still lingering. He pondered, I could rest or cultivate, but perhaps I should explore the path of hell a little more. Recalling what happened in the second hall, I wonder when conflict will erupt here again. Suddenly, his ears perked up, a thought flashing in his mind. Footsteps? He closed his eyes, focusing all his senses to listen. Let's see. He silently counted as the figures approached. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. In the deserted forest, Bu Yunseol faced 5 ambushers. The leader spoke up. You've become too arrogant. We'll teach you a lesson. He sneered, calling themselves the 5-peak swords, geniuses among geniuses. But Bu Yunseol remained silent, a strange glint suddenly appearing in his eyes. No, there's one more. He clenched his fist, sensing another presence. The leader roared in anger. You bastard, do you want to test us? In a flash, Bu Yunseol struck, an attack as swift as lightning. The leader fell on the spot, the remaining 4 frozen in horror. Amidst the suffocating silence, a name was uttered. Seo Jinha. A red-haired figure appeared, eyes sharp as knives. Bu Yunseol looked up, facing the newcomer. Seo Jinha looked directly at him. We need to talk. The remaining disciples panicked. Seo Jinha, why are you suddenly here? Get lost, Seo Jinha replied coldly. I have nothing to say to you, small fry. The 2 disciples broke out in a cold sweat, completely overwhelmed by his aura. They quickly turned and fled, not forgetting to utter a weak threat. Bu Yunseol thought to himself, this guy, he's really strong. Yeah, Seo Jinha replied. Then both uttered a single word, cowards. Seo Jinha's crimson eyes gleamed meaningfully. He looked directly at Bu Yunseol. I'll ask you directly. Seo Jinha pointed his sword straight, his crimson eyes piercing his opponent. Whose side are you on? Bu Yunseol was stunned, the sudden question hitting him like a bolt from the blue. A memory suddenly flooded back, the voice of his old master echoing. Until now, all of you have learned the first form of the blazing dance sword, profound character blazing illusion. The old master stood before the class, declaring, but only when you create your own sword forms will you truly comprehend it. It's time for me to see your blazing rain. Among dozens of trainees, Bu Yunseol's name was called. Perform the profound character blazing illusion, the master commanded. Bu Yunseol silently stepped forward, his hand gripping the hilt of his sword. He closed his eyes, and a chilling aura began to gather. And then, his eyes snapped open, filled with furious killing intent. Bu Yunseol moved like a ghost, unleashing deadly, crimson sword strikes. A final move was unleashed from midair, its explosive power engulfing the entire training hall. When the dust settled, Bu Yunseol stood there, amidst deep sword marks etched into the ground. The master mused, commenting, You have turned a solemn sword form into something solely for killing. You may return to your place, he said, then called the next person. The next name called was Seo Jinha. The 2 of them passed each other, one stepping forward, the other returning to the ranks. That moment was etched deep into Bu Yunseol's mind. His thoughts continued. At that time, Seo Jinha must have performed a technique that completely countered mine, instead of the profound character-blazing illusion. Back in the present, Bu Yunseol was bewildered, wondering, as if warning me. Whose side am I on? What do you mean? Seo Jinha roared in anger. Don't play dumb, he continued. I know not everyone here wants to become a 10 great demon venerable successor. Bu Yunseol suddenly realized that although this was an opportunity to learn the martial arts of the 10 great demonic factions, the participation process was suspiciously lax. In his thoughts, a fox symbolized the naive ones entering the game. And then, it realized this opportunity was actually a trap to capture someone. You mean, there are spies? Bu Yunseol asked in astonishment. Seo Jinha secretly assessed that the other person's expression and tone were not feigned. He sheathed his sword, clicking his tongue. So it's not you. And here I was hoping for some fun. From now on, he turned away. At the training hall, just keep your head down and behave. He glanced back menacingly. If you provoke me again, I'll cut you down too. With that, Seo Jinha left, leaving Bu Yunseol alone with his thoughts. Spies? Bu Yunseol murmured. There's so much I don't know. It made sense, because until now, he had only poured all his effort into learning the martial arts of Nangya Pavilion and the blazing dance swords. But then, Bu Yunseol quickly regained his composure, telling himself that whether they were spies or fiends, they were all enemies to be eliminated. As dusk fell, he knew everything was about to begin. In a hidden corner, a small mouse appeared under the dimming sky. Suddenly, A sharp claw seized it tightly. High above, a large bird's shadow soared over the forest and the training hall's architecture. Inside, a hand slammed down on a table, and a voice rang out. As of today, all training has been completed. A white-haired elder smiled and said, I suppose many of you found learning martial theory quite tedious. The elder explained that even masters must study martial principles, because knowing and doing are two entirely different things. He asserted that what he taught would be a great advantage for the disciples on their future journey in the martial world. After a moment of silence, the elder looked directly at the crowd. I wish you good luck on the battlefield. Suddenly, a gong sounded, startling the disciples, who didn't understand what was happening. The elder declared loudly, It's time. Everyone, proceed to the rocky mountain in the center of the island immediately. The towering rocky mountain appeared under the star-filled night sky. The disciples quickly gathered before a high platform, where two unfamiliar men were waiting. A ponytailed assistant reported to the muscular supervisor, Everyone has gathered. Standing in the crowd, Bu Yunseol's face was full of tension. The muscular supervisor spoke in an authoritative voice. Now, from this moment on, the third trial will begin. The disciples murmured, The third trial? Wasn't it the second? Bu Yunseol thought to himself, the life or death battle he had just experienced was indeed the second trial. A black-clad assistant announced that the caves would be sealed off until 10 candidates were chosen. The disciples whispered amongst themselves, their faces filled with worry. One of them spoke up to ask about the method for choosing those 10 people. The ponytailed assistant replied with a contemptuous tone, criticizing them for being too slow-witted. The brutal supervisor raised his hand, giving a horrifying command. Kill each other. His bloodshot eyes gleamed, emphasizing, until 10 candidates are chosen, you must kill each other. Understand? The brutal command left the disciples stunned. Only one person maintained an unusual calm. The supervisor continued, You can hide in the shadows, run without fighting. That is your choice, but it won't last. As time passes, the area you can stay in will shrink, and those who linger in the forbidden zone will be slaughtered by these killing ghosts. Bu Yunseol shivered, thinking to himself, this terrifying killing intent spreads even here. Clearly, they are all formidable masters. Amidst the silent crowd, a disciple spoke up, asking, Are we not allowed to attack those ghosts? The supervisor burst into delighted laughter. If you want to become one of the 10 candidates, you must at least be able to handle this. Of course you can attack and fight them, he said, while the image of a killing ghost appeared menacingly. Anyone who kills a killing ghost will immediately become one of the 10 chosen. The disciples realized in horror. So, defeating a ghost is even harder than slaughtering everyone here. The supervisor growled, Remember this well. You can go in groups or ambush. It doesn't matter. As long as you can kill at any cost, that is the way to become one of the 10 candidates. The declaration ended, and the life or death arena on the Rocky Mountain officially opened. Without a moment's hesitation, Bu Yunseol dashed off and told himself, I must move quickly. I've already attracted too much attention from the other disciples. If I don't leave here immediately, I might be surrounded again by those who are wary of me, just like last time. First, I'll go to a safe place. And the safest place is, of course, there. Bu Yunseol sped up, heading straight for a secluded thatched hut. Bu Yunseol darted through the forest. Suddenly, he stopped short, thinking to himself, Huh? The ground feels different than before. He bent down, touched the strange soil, and realized, this is. Bu Yunseol's gaze suddenly sharpened. A feeling told him someone was approaching. Another disciple rushed out of the forest, yelling in panic, Please save me. Those bastards are chasing and trying to kill me. Bu Yunseol observed coldly, his hand already on the hilt of his sword. The other disciple pleaded, promising to repay him, but Bu Yunseol was merely analyzing. A trap? No. His gray eyes swept over every detail of the person opposite him. The wounds on his body were real. Behind them, 3 pursuers, forming a group, were closing in. I don't want to get involved, Bu Yunseol thought, but it would be troublesome if my position was revealed because of this guy. The pursued disciple looked up with eyes full of hope. Without a word of warning, Bu Yunseol stomped his foot on the ground. A cloud of dust rose thickly, obscuring visibility. Seizing the opportunity, Bu Yunseol yanked him into a roadside bush. The pursuing group rushed forward, asking each other in confusion, Where did he go? He couldn't have disappeared that quickly. The leader growled furiously, That bastard. I'll definitely kill him with my own hands. Go. All 3 immediately rushed off, searching everywhere. And in the distance, Bu Yunseol's original target, a secluded thatched hut, was still waiting. Bu Yunseol emerged from the ground right in front of the thatched hut, their designated hiding spot. Immediately after, they pulled another exhausted disciple out of the pit. The other disciple stammered, You saved me, thank you. Bu Yunseol thought to himself, this pit was not just for hiding, but also Elder Sao's preparation. In that moment of concealment, Bu Yunseol realized that his beast path senses had been amplified. Every sound of footsteps on the ground was clearly felt. Even the sounds of sword arts being performed were no exception. Through these vibrations, the entire situation above became as clear as the palm of his hand. Bu Yunsol understood. The beast path uses vibrations. This must be what he wanted to teach me. Returning to reality, they were still deep in thought. Bu Yunseol's eyes suddenly flashed with a sharp glint. They suddenly remembered something. The young man clasped his hands. I am Jium Cheoliang from the Blood Sect. May I ask your name? Ignored, Jium Cheoliang hastily followed. Ah, then let's go together. He began to recount how terrifyingly he had been pursued in the forest. If you don't mind, may I accompany you? I feel like I can trust you. Bu Yunseol remained silent, not responding at all. Jium Cheoliang interpreted the silence himself. I'll take that as your agreement. He happily looked at Bu Yunseol, who maintained a cold expression. They continued their journey through the rolling mountain ranges. Bu Yunseol placed his hand on the ground, sensing vibrations from afar. They told Jium Cheoliang that there was a battle ahead, which astonished him and made him want to learn this secret art. Bu Yunseol merely replied coldly, "We'll see," and continued walking. Elsewhere, an eye-patch-wearing swordsman swore to avenge his brothers, even if he had to sell his soul. Painful memories of a deceased loved one flooded back, fueling his will for revenge. Sensing a familiar surge of hatred, Bu Yunseol suddenly stopped, confusing Jium Cheoliang. The plan has changed, Bu Yunseol declared. I will join that battle. To Jium Cheoliang's astonishment, as the two approached, an assassin was already lying in ambush on a tree branch. He swooped down like a ghost, aiming straight for the two of them. But Bu Yunseol reacted in a flash, drawing his sword to block the fatal attack. The assassin was stunned, unable to believe his ultimate assassination technique had been neutralized, and questioned his opponent's identity. Without a word, Bu Yunseol swung his sword in counterattack. A fiery slash tore through the air, hurtling straight towards the assassin. The attacker was instantly struck down, his body flying backward into a pool of blood. Bu Yunseol thought to himself, without the beast path, the assassin's stealth skills would indeed be very troublesome. Jium Cheoliang was horrified to see blood on his companion's sword sheath. Turning his gaze towards the battle, Bu Yunseol's eyes glowed red as he considered helping the other swordsmen. Amidst the battlefield strewn with corpses, they wondered if helping others exact revenge would bring them satisfaction. The eye-patch-wearing swordsman was exhausted but still struggled to stand, while the enemy ordered him to be finished off. The assassin leader declared he would grant a swift death, but his comrades suddenly flinched at another danger. The assassin flinched as a dark shadow suddenly lunged forward, blocking his sword strike. He frantically wondered who this stranger was, not expecting the enemy to still have allies. Bu Yunseol coldly ignored him, his eyes flashing with a crimson killing intent. They merely muttered, "Just kill you," then unleashed a devastating slash. The assassin only managed a final groan before collapsing. In a fit of rage, the one-eyed swordsman charged left and right through the enemy encirclement. He swung each sharp sword strike, filled with resentment. An assassin fell with a fatal cut to his neck. The remaining one was pierced through by a sword before he could even react. The swordsman leaped into the air, aiming straight for the screaming leader. His face was splattered with fresh blood, his wide eyes showing madness. A final slash came down, fresh blood splattering everywhere. The brutal scene ended in a flash. The assassin leader collapsed to the ground. The swordsman's eyes glowed brightly in the darkness, his mission accomplished. He let out a maniacal laugh amidst the bloody battlefield. "My revenge. It is done," he muttered as he collapsed from exhaustion. But the truth was different. Bu Yunseol was the only one standing amidst a forest of corpses. From the bushes, Jium Cheoliang trembled and exclaimed, "Is it over?" He approached Bu Yunseol, who was sitting next to the unconscious swordsman, and said, "Yunseol, your martial arts are truly exceptional, but," Jium Cheoliang snarled with a savage smile, "even so, you mustn't let your guard down." A deafening clang echoed as metal clashed fiercely. The surprise attack was blocked. Bu Yunseol had used his sword to parry Jium Cheoliang's dagger. How? How can this be? Jium Cheoliang was stunned, unable to believe his eyes. "It's all your fault," Bu Yunseol retorted coldly, pushing his opponent away. "Because of you, I couldn't ask that guy his last question," he said. Jium Cheoliang yelled, "You bastard. What the hell are you talking about? More importantly, when did you find out?" From the very beginning, Bu Yunseol affirmed, leaving Jium Cheoliang speechless. Bu Yunseol explained, "Last time, when you were hiding underground, I already knew you were carrying a lot of hidden weapons. Just by looking at your stiff gait, as if you were carrying something at your waist, it wasn't hard to tell. The only reason I kept you around, even knowing your true identity, was simply because I was curious about your tricks. Observing how deceivers act, I thought it would be quite useful for future battles." "No way. Cheoliang gritted his teeth, refusing to accept the truth. My acting was perfect, he screamed in despair, unleashing a volley of daggers. Bu Unseol calmly faced the incoming rain of weapons. Cheoliang suddenly realized. When I was observing him, I felt it, just as I thought. He can predict movements? Bu Yunseol's pupils glowed with an eerie red light. With extraordinary precision, Bu Yunseol deftly dodged all the daggers. A sword gleamed, and fresh blood spurted from Cheoliang's neck. He staggered and fell, hearing Bu Unseol's final words. No matter how good your hidden weapons are, Bu Yunseol said coldly. Once they're discovered, they're useless, aren't they? Cheoliang roared in despair, his eyes burning with madness. In a fit of rage, he let out a final scream and charged to attack. Bu Yunseol faced the desperate attack with emotionless eyes, his face splattered with blood. In a flash, he had glided past Cheoliang, delivering a counterstrike with his sword. Fresh blood gushed from Cheoliang's throat as the fatal sword strike pierced him. Bu Yunseol coldly withdrew his sword, leaving his enemy to collapse to the ground. He thought to himself, this battle was not easy. He had almost been in danger if he hadn't recognized his opponent's trick. His eyes still held the tension from the desperate fight. A life was slowly fading at his feet. Cheoliang took his last breath, his eyes wide with horror. Bu Yunseol noted that the face of the recently deceased was still hauntingly full of life. But amidst this graveyard, one person was different. He knelt beside the body of the one-eyed swordsman, a fleeting image of that person's desperate and proud battle. Bu Yunseol wondered, what does it feel like to successfully exact revenge? Will I be able to smile so peacefully? On the face of the deceased was a smile of contentment and peace. Seeing that, a relieved smile also briefly appeared on Bu Yunseol's lips. He gently removed the sword from the swordsman's cold, stiff hand. Bu Yunseol stood up, accepting the fallen comrade's relics and will. Bu Yunseol traversed the forest, walking on dry leaves. A mysterious voice echoed, wondering, is that him? The scene of the brutal battle flashed through the observer's mind. Bu Yunseol's speed and precision in every sword stroke were replayed. That person commented, using the basic sword techniques of the Huoyu sword sect to take down assassins. From the shadows, a pair of sharp eyes assessed. A formidable talent, but there are many prodigies like him here. The voice concluded that without progress, survival here was impossible. Proof of his talent were the bodies of assassins strewn across the ground. The next day, Bu Yunseol was exhausted and gasping for breath as he tried to escape. A disciple with a small topknot led the pursuit group, yelling, chase him! Don't let him escape! He was quickly surrounded by a group using long, whip-like weapons. Bu Yunseol swung his sword, quickly parrying a dangerous attack. The deafening sound of metal clashing echoed. Even so, he couldn't avoid everything and sustained a wound. He gritted his teeth, thinking, he's really persistent. At this rate, I'll die. Cornered, Bu Yunseol realized he had to come up with a plan immediately. Meanwhile, on a high mountain peak, two figures were observing everything. The muscular supervisor asked for the situation, and the assistant reported, only 41 out of 80. 6 disciples are still alive. The supervisor muttered with a pensive expression, only this many left after 3 days. Meanwhile, Bu Yunseol was still frantically swinging his sword amidst the encirclement. Elsewhere, the supervisor ordered his subordinate, bring me the map. A member of the pursuit team, the buzzcut guy, cheered triumphantly as his weapon locked onto the opponent. Bu Yunseol froze, his sword entangled by the enemy's chain. But seizing the opportunity, he immediately turned and fled, making the entire pursuit team shout in frustration. As he fled, Bu Yunseol calculated silently, their weapons are not suitable for open combat. Then first, he decided, charging forward towards a predetermined target. At the same time, the muscular supervisor made a decision. We will cordon off this area. A resolute expression appeared on Bu Yunseol's blood-smeared face. The supervisor pointed to a location on the map, ordering, release the assassins of the secret chamber within the Huawu Sword Hall. The target had been identified. The Huawu Sword Hall. Just as planned, Bu Yunseol alone charged up the long stairs leading to the ancient hall. Inside, the pursuit team paused at the bloodstains on the floor, searching cautiously. 2 members of the White Horse Squad looked up at the sign of the Huawu Sword Sect. The group cautiously entered a dark corridor, their leader wondering if their prey was hiding there. No matter how far you run, you won't escape our White Horse Squad, the leader said smugly, unaware that death was right behind him. A teammate cried out in panic, behind you! As Bu Yunseol unexpectedly launched a lightning-fast strike. Idiot! The leader roared. Do you think that little trick will work? But Bu Yunseol merely stood silently in a defensive stance, ready for the real fight. The deafening clang of metal echoed as the leader was astonished to see his attack blocked. He realized in shock. This guy, is he reading the White Horse Squad's moves? Bu Yunseol landed lightly after deflecting the attack. He swung a fiery sword strike, sweeping across the White Horse Squad's formation. The small bun-haired disciple watched in horror as his teammate was cut down by a single slash. "Damn it!" he roared, facing Bu Yunseol, who charged like a ghost. He frantically swung his sword, trying to fight back in desperation. But then he froze, realizing, this place is too cramped. Bu Yunseol closed in coldly, giving his opponent no moment of respite. The sharp blade cut through, and a desperate scream echoed throughout the corridor. The buzz-cut disciple was stunned. This guy, he suddenly understood. He deliberately lured us here. Bu Yunseol calculated silently. The cramped terrain had broken their formation, and each of them individually was unremarkable. He declared resolutely, "If I deal with them one by one, I can definitely win." The buzz-cut disciple roared, unleashing his final attack with his chain weapon. The chain struck the wall, sparking a missed attack. Bu Yunseol nimbly leaped into the air, dodging perfectly. He landed, plunging the tip of his sword into a floor tile. "Oh no!" The whip bounced back. The buzz-cut disciple despaired as his own weapon recoiled. Seizing the chance, another member shouted, "This is our chance. Retreat quickly." But a hand grabbed him by the head from behind. The spiky-haired disciple stared blankly, not understanding what had just happened. Wu Menqing stood tall, his voice coldly questioning. "What are you doing? You're not trying to escape, are you?" He roared furiously. "Trying to run away?" A team member trembled, explaining. "Leader, it's not like that. It's just that this place isn't suitable for combat." But he gave his teammates no chance to explain. In just a moment, Wu Menqing slaughtered his own follower. Clicking his tongue, he sneered, "I shouldn't have brought along these pieces of trash who haven't even passed the advanced class." From a hidden corner, Bu Yunseol witnessed the entire brutal scene. He stepped out, calmly asking, "Are you their leader?" Wu Menqing smirked. "Your skills are quite impressive. That sword technique just now, was it Hua Wu sword?" He introduced himself as Wu Menqing, then asked for his name in return. The space was eerily silent, with only the two of them facing each other amidst the corpses. Bu Yunseol mumbled, as if the name Wu Menqing had stirred something within him. Wu Menqing burst into arrogant laughter. "The name of someone about to die. I don't need to know." With that, he swung his weapon and lunged to attack. Bu Yunseol quickly raised his sword to block, surprised to realize it was a flexible sword. With a clang, his sword shattered into pieces. Wu Menqing scoffed. "I heard the advanced class of Hua Wu sword only teaches defensive stances, huh?" Which secretly shocked Yunseol. How does he know that? Does he have some intelligence network I'm unaware of? Nevertheless, Bu Yunseol remained unfazed, shouting a challenge as he took a ready stance for battle. Wu Menqing swung his flexible sword with an arrogant smile. The powerful attack sent Bu Yunseol flying, shattering the wall behind him. Bu Yunseol thought to himself, "He destroys everything he touches, be it walls or ceilings." He realized he had no advantage fighting someone like that in a confined space. Another whip-like strike lashed out powerfully, sending Bu Yunseol sprawling on the ground. He gritted his teeth and struggled to his feet, forcing himself to stand firm. Despite his injuries, Bu Yunseol's eyes still shone with an unyielding resilience. Wu Menqing turned his back and walked away, scoffing. "How disappointing," he roared, "with such pathetic swordsmanship. You can't stand against my Bai Ma Jue." The flexible sword in his hand transformed, unleashing its renowned technique. Bu Yunseol was stunned as countless whip-like sword strikes assailed him from all directions. He was completely trapped within the cage formed by the flexible sword. Wu Menqing laughed heartily. "Bai Ma Xian will soon take your life." Bu Yunseol assessed that even if Tiandi Xuangong could block the attack, it wouldn't be strong enough to break through this Bai Ma Xian. In this situation, what I need right now is... He closed his eyes, his mind sinking into stillness. A memory suddenly flooded back, an image of his old master teaching him. Bu Yunseol's eyes snapped open, a flash of enlightenment in his pupils. Sensing the change, Wu Menqing was slightly surprised. He sneered, "Haha, trying to make one last desperate struggle? It's useless, Tiandi Xuan." His thoughts were cut short as a blinding flash of light shattered the whip cage. Wu Menqing froze, unable to believe the sudden turn of events. A terrifying energy explosion erupted, completely destroying his whip sword formation. At the heart of the energy storm, Bu Yunseol stood firm with a broken sword hilt in his hand. The Lei Dian technique struck like lightning, blasting Wu Menqing away. The brilliant golden lightning completely overwhelmed him, deciding the outcome of the battle. "Wah, what the hell?" Wu Menqing mumbled in a daze. He looked at the scene before him with extreme horror. "What is this?" Bu Yunseol stood tall, his blood-stained face gleaming with cold determination. Wu Menqing was completely defeated, lying motionless on the ground. Bu Yunseol slightly bowed his head, feeling the aftershocks of the recent technique. He panted, exhausted after unleashing the finishing blow. "Ugh, Lei Dian. Just as Master said, it's a killing sword with astonishing power. But he covered his mouth with his hand, trying to suppress the internal pain. At the same time, it's also an overly powerful symbiotic swordsmanship. It will be very difficult for me to use it freely at my current level. Bu Yunseol looked at the corpse at his feet, thinking, I've wasted too much time here. I need to move. Suddenly, a chill ran down his spine, making him spin around. No way, he thought to himself with a horrified expression. His eyes reflected the silhouette of a figure in a black cloak approaching. Why is that guy here? A cloaked figure appeared, its eyes glowing blood red. Bu Yunseol recognized it in horror. Killing demon, he trembled, asking himself, why is a killing demon here? Bu Yunseol realized. Has this place become a forbidden zone while we were fighting? He faced the enemy, resolute. But I didn't come here just to run away. He suddenly realized another danger as the killing demon lifted its foot. If Amjin leaves the forbidden zone, the killing demon remained motionless before the gate, emanating a chilling aura of killing intent. Good, no reaction, Bu Yunseol thought to himself. That means I have to leave immediately. Seizing the opportunity, he darted past the enemy to find an escape route. Unexpectedly, a gigantic python with a glowing red energy core appeared, blocking his path. Bu Yunseol was utterly horrified by the sudden attack. An invisible force slammed into him, sending him flying. His body reeled in midair, his vision distorted from the impact. Just as he landed, the killing demon closed in with a deadly, glowing red sword strike. I didn't even feel that sword strike, he thought in horror. If not for Shoudao, I would surely be dead. Bu Yunseol took a defensive stance, bracing himself to face the unpredictable enemy. He raised his sword, his eyes filled with tension but unwavering. He told himself, don't be fooled by that calm exterior. The moment I move, he will attack first. A familiar voice from the past echoed in his head. When predators hunt prey, even if they are faster, the prey isn't easily caught. Do you know why? In the memory, he replied. Isn't it because most herbivores move in a Z pattern? The master smiled. Exactly. Most predators cannot easily hunt such prey. However, apex predators still succeed. The reason is, they time their attacks to match the movements of the fleeing prey. Young Bu Yunseol asked again, and the master replied, so how should you counter? I said they match the movements, didn't I? So what should you do? In that case, Bu Yunseol smirked, his eyes flashing with determination. He let out a roar, pouring all his strength into lunging forward. I have to move completely unpredictably, he told himself, starting to accelerate. The killing demon merely exhaled, calmly observing its struggling prey. Bu Yunseol began moving in a zigzag pattern, trying to break his opponent's rhythm, but the killing demon anticipated his trajectory with just a slight glide. The killer appeared right in front of him, blocking all of Bu Yunseol's efforts. Bu Yunseol quickly ducked low, dodging a sharp sword strike. He utilized the beast path, trying to evade the predetermined attacks. Determined to create an opening, he focused all his concentration on the next moment. However, the killing demon struck first, with an inscrutable sword slash. Damn it, too late. Bu Yunseol was horrified as the cold blade was already at his neck. But strangely, the fatal strike stopped just a hair's breadth from his skin. He was stunned, wondering, why did he stop? Could it be? I've entered the forbidden zone? The killing demon remained still at the edge of the steps, with no intention of further pursuit. Bu Yunseol bitterly realized that from beginning to end, he had only run headlong without creating a single opportunity. He continued to flee, silently admitting to himself, that is a true master. A bitter question echoed in his mind. Am I just a frog in a well? The vast night sky only made his helplessness more apparent. Bu Yunseol numbly admitted. The killing demon's martial arts have reached an incomprehensible realm. Bu Yunseol thought to himself about the monster that had murdered his grandfather, a being who surely possessed terrifying martial arts. To avenge his grandfather, he told himself he had to surpass that realm. Suddenly, a voice came from the stranger sitting on the rock. You are Bu Yunseol, aren't you? The strange swordsman said he had been looking for him for a long time, and had heard of his cultivation of the beast path. Bu Yunseol was suspicious, wondering if the brute using the white horse whip had revealed the information. The swordsman stood up, answering decisively. No, those about to die don't need to know my name. With that, he charged forward with a battle cry. I'm here! Bu Yunseol reacted in a flash, swinging his sword to parry the lightning-fast attack. Oh, impressive, the stranger smirked. With the instincts of a wild beast, you anticipated my sword strike. He continued his attack, remarking, as expected, you will surely become one of the 10 candidates. If so, I will eradicate the seed of the demonic cult right here, he shouted, unleashing a powerful sword technique. His sword technique has completely changed. Bu Yunseol exclaimed in surprise as he defended. But what does seed of the demonic cult mean? The swordsman knew that not everyone came here wanting to become one of the 10 greats. A flash of realization sparked in Bu Yunseol's mind. This person, could it be? He gritted his teeth, trying to cast aside distracting thoughts to focus on the battle. But when the two swords clashed, a strange sensation transmitted through him, making him falter. And then, another sensation. A surge of blue qi enveloped the opponent's greatsword. Bu Yunseol was startled to realize a strange pulling force was drawing both him and his sword forward. A memory suddenly rushed back, Bu Yunseol's young eyes wide, reflecting the image of his grandfather. Beside a corpse, his grandfather explained. This person was struck by the Oho Danman blade of the Hebei Peng family, making the boy curiously ask again. The old man thoughtfully analyzed the characteristics of this deadly martial art that left no external wounds. Returning to reality, Bu Yunseol growled as he recognized the opponent's technique. It's the Hebei Peng family. The strange swordsman couldn't hide his astonishment. How do you know? He questioned. While his grandfather's teachings from years ago still echoed in Yunseol's mind, the memory continued. The old man explaining the absorption technique, a vortex that drew everything around it. This technique directly interfered with the opponent's weapon during combat. It broke the sword's path, swallowing enemies in panic. Truly worthy of the title Fierce Tiger of Hebei, but he also pointed out a fatal weakness. It was a double-edged sword, also drawing the user closer to the enemy. Back in the battle, Bu Yunseol already had a countermeasure based on the old teaching. He decided to use that very pulling force to guide his sword towards his opponent. The opponent roared, declaring his identity. I am Peng Ak of Hebei. Peng Ak charged forward, vowing to eradicate the seed of the demonic cult in the name of his clan. Seizing the opportunity, Bu Yunseol plunged his sword into the ground to brace himself against the pulling force. Peng Ak was stunned by his opponent's unexpected action. Despite his surprise, he still swung his sword, attacking Yunseol, who was being pulled towards him. A full-force slash was unleashed, but because Yunseol had dodged, Peng Ak lost his balance and stumbled. Bu Yunseol stood firm, having successfully countered the dangerous technique. Bu Yunseol inwardly cheered, realizing his plan had succeeded. Peng Ak staggered back to his feet, roaring, "You beast!" Resorting to petty tricks again. He calmly assessed that while the previous blow was effective, it wasn't strong enough to defeat a body that had been tempered. However, Bu Yunseol was certain he had found a way to counter his opponent. Memories of his grandfather's teachings suddenly flooded back, about the later strike, control the man technique. The principle was to reverse the opponent's absorption technique, making his own swordplay faster than its original trajectory. Without hesitation, he allowed Peng Ak's pulling force to draw him forward. Bu Yunseol tightened his grip on the sword hilt, channeling all his strength. He used his opponent's own pulling force to shoot forward like an arrow. Mid-air, he raised his sword high, preparing for the decisive blow. And at the very last moment, he abruptly changed the trajectory of his slash. His sword blade plunged directly into Peng Ak's great saber. Peng Ak cried out in surprise as the two surges of power collided. He was pushed back, completely bewildered by what had just happened, thinking, could he also be using an absorption technique? Impossible. Even master swordsmen find it difficult to skillfully wield such power. Peng Ak roared in fury. No way a mere brat can do that. Again. Bu Yunseol calmly faced the surge of power coming at him for the second time. He thought to himself, it's useless. The stronger your absorption technique, the faster my sword will become. The two sword energies clashed once more. But this time, Bu Yunseol held the upper hand. Peng Ak snarled angrily, how long do you think that cat and mouse game will work? Bu Yunseol maintained his intense focus. His absorption ability had completely vanished. Peng Ak clicked his tongue. Tesk, you're strong enough even without the absorption art. He roared and charged forward to attack. Take this. Peng Ak gritted his teeth as his attack was blocked once again. Bu Yunseol thought to himself, I've been waiting for this moment. He channeled his strength to unleash the Firestorm Sword Dance, the first form, the profound sword art. Bu Yunseol's crimson sword energy completely overwhelmed his opponent. Both were pushed back after the terrifying collision. Bu Yunseol stood firm, blood already seeping from his face and body. Peng Ak smirked, seemingly unharmed. But then, a sudden cut appeared on his chest. Fresh blood immediately gushed from the fatal wound. Peng Ak staggered back in pain. He knelt down, realizing in astonishment. Could this be? That's right. Firestorm Sword Dance. First form, profound sword art. That move is quite dangerous. Bu Yunseol told himself that to convert defense into offense, he had to endure every blow. He watched Bu Yunseol's retreating back in astonishment, interpreting the profound sword art that way. I never imagined it. What? Are you just leaving? Peng Ak, despite being severely wounded, still said in a daze, You have nothing to do with my grudge. He smirked. Among those who came to greet me, there are also people like you. Truly interesting. Bu Yunseol coldly replied, It's best if we don't meet again, then decisively turned his back. Having lost all his strength, Peng Ak staggered to his knees, helplessly watching his opponent's back disappear. Finally, he collapsed completely to the ground. Just then, a cloaked shadow silently approached him. Peng Ak looked up, asking sarcastically, "Have you come to kill a small fry like me?" The stranger spoke with an arrogant tone. "Peng Ak, of the Hebei Peng family. A righteous practitioner like you is quite useful. What a pity." Peng Ak gave a bitter laugh. "Huh. So you knew from the start?" The killing ghost coldly declared. "You have underestimated the demonic sword. Farewell," he said his last words and raised his sword. A brilliant red flash tore through the night, signaling a life extinguished. The scene shifted to a gloomy, silent forest. The killing ghost lightly landed on the ground. Suddenly, another figure moving through the forest froze. That person was using one hand to tightly grip their other bleeding wrist. An invisible force flung him violently against a tree trunk, his weapon also flying far away. Seo Jinha collapsed, his face contorted in extreme pain. The killing ghost appeared, looked down at him, and said, "Unlucky for you, Seo Jinha." Despite his agony, Seo Jinha still looked up at his enemy with eyes burning with hatred. The female assassin mocked Seo Jinha, revealing he had been hit by special poison needles and would die without an antidote. Seo Jinha gritted his teeth in hatred, not expecting anyone to use poison and coordinate so effectively. He bitterly realized the limits of fighting alone, while the female assassin had already seen through his intention to use his left hand for his sword. The enemy sneered that a right-handed person could never master left-handed swordsmanship. "Give up," she ordered with a sinister smile. Wounded and poisoned, Seo Jinha retreated behind a tree as the assassins charged simultaneously. Countless poison darts were launched from their hands. Seo Jinha swung his sword, trying to deflect the incoming deadly projectile, but he couldn't dodge in time, and another poison needle pierced his shoulder. Damn it, poisoned again, he thought in despair, knowing he couldn't last much longer. Surrounded on all sides, Seo Jinha knew there was no escape. He managed a bitter smile, seemingly having accepted his fate. Suddenly, a strange sensation washed over him, making his eyes widen. An assassin fell, making the others realize in horror that there was an intruder. A dark shadow streaked through the air. A sword gleamed within the encirclement. The assassins were stunned by the appearance of the uninvited guest. The intervener was none other than Bu Yunseol, with eyes as sharp and cold as ice. He tightened his grip on his sword, preparing for a finishing blow. A single sword strike swept through, and the assassins fell like cut straw. Seo Jinha was frozen, stiff, horrified by the scene that had just unfolded. In the clearing, Bu Yunseol stood tall amidst the scattered corpses of the assassins. He stood there, the sword in his hand still stained with the fresh blood of his enemies. Seo Jinha's eyes were full of caution, tightening his grip on his sword as he faced the mysterious savior. He quickly raised his hand. "Wait, I mean no harm." But Bu Yunseol swept past like a gust of wind, snatching something from his hand. "So this is the antidote," Bu Yunseol thought to himself. "Now I can deal with those bastards from the blood prison cult more easily." Seeing Yunseol about to leave, Seo Jinha desperately called out, "Wait!" Bu Yunseol coldly turned back. "What is it?" "I've been poisoned by them," Seo Jinha explained in pain. "In less than half an hour, the poison will spread throughout my body." Bu Yunseol replied with a harsh truth. "I came here to kill everyone, including you," Seo Jinha bitterly admitted. "Right. After all, I'm just another opponent you have to eliminate." Suddenly, he looked up, making a bold offer. "How about this? If you give me the antidote, I'll join your side." Bu Yunseol showed a hint of surprise at the sudden change. He narrowed his eyes in scrutiny. "And why should I do that?" "There are only about 20 people left," Seo Jinha analyzed. "The others have all formed groups. No matter how strong you are, you can't fight all of them alone. But if you cooperate with me, you will definitely have an advantage." More importantly, Seo Jinha placed his hand on his chest and swore, "If you save my life, I swear I will never betray you." Bu Yunseol fell into thought, reevaluating the person in front of him. He's arrogant, independent, but not the type to deceive or stab someone in the back. "Conditions?" Bu Yunseol asked coldly. Seo Jinha pleaded, "Until only the two of us remain, standing shoulder to shoulder against others, never betraying each other." An image flashed in Bu Yunseol's mind. Seo Jinha's eyes trembled, awaiting a life or death verdict. In his memory, the young Yunseol held a gourd of medicine. Back in reality, Bu Yunseol unexpectedly threw the gourd of antidote to Seo Jinha. Seo Jinha hastily caught it, unable to utter a word. But immediately after, Bu Yunseol swiftly drew his sword and lunged forward. Suddenly, his eyes glowed red as he sensed something unusual. "Another forbidden zone appearing? We have to leave here," Bu Yunseol urged, but Seo Jinha was still bewildered. "Why? This place isn't forbidden." He explained that when other areas were sealed off, This would be the only place left. Suddenly, the sound of many footsteps echoed. A stranger with a sinister smile emerged from the shadows. Following him were Yu Menqing and another accomplice, weapons already in hand. More and more enemies appeared, blocking all escape routes. The two quickly stood back to back, facing the encirclement of an entire army. Bu Onseol muttered, realizing that all the other survivors had been herded here. Is it too late? In the crowd, other formidable figures gradually became clear. A mysterious figure with a red headband smiled cunningly, seemingly confident of victory. Bu Yunseol thought to himself, this guy, Seojinha, was somehow different from the others. A disciple in the encircling group drew his sword and growled, "What are we waiting for? Why don't we just deal with them both?" Yu Menqing, the leader, spoke up, identifying Bu Yunseol, the one who has mastered Nangya's beast path. He continued, pointing at Seojinha. And the other one, his swordsmanship is formidable. Don't underestimate him. Bu Yunseol coldly retorted, as expected, you know a lot about me and Seojinha. The two exchanged glances, tension rising to a peak as they faced the encirclement. Suddenly, Seojinha pulled a small pouch from his sleeve. Bu Yunseol froze, realizing it was the antidote pouch he had given him. Seojinha roared, raising the pouch high. Bu Yunseol, I'll scatter Yongquizan. This is our chance. A thick purple smoke erupted, engulfing the astonished crowd. Yu Menqing frantically covered his mouth. Yongquizan, the poison of the Suemo Jiao? Damn it. Seizing the golden opportunity, Bu Yunseol and Seojinha immediately broke through the encirclement and fled. A disciple wearing a white headband suddenly stopped, feeling something was wrong. The one with the small bun realized the truth, shouting, "This isn't Yongquizan." Seojinha sneered as the plan succeeded, thinking to himself that this powder was just a smoke bomb for distraction. As he ran, he calculated, an open area like this is very disadvantageous. We must enter the Rocky Mountains with many caves. Seojinha turned to ask his comrade, and Bu Yunseol decisively replied, I know a place. He described a cave with a narrow entrance and a long path inside. A perfect defensive terrain. Seojinha couldn't help but be astonished, not expecting Bu Yunseol to have calculated and prepared so thoroughly. Who exactly is this guy? Seojinha wondered to himself as he followed Bu Yunseol. Behind them, the pursuing group of disciples was still hot on their heels. The two traversed the dense forest at an astonishing speed. Finally, they reached the foot of a treacherous rocky mountain. We're here, Seojinha sighed in relief, but he suddenly stopped when he noticed a strange purple mist covering everything. Bu Yunseol was wary. Is it always this foggy here? Something's not right. From the shadows, a cloaked phantom, wearing a white mask with glowing red eyes, gradually appeared. Not just one, but a whole horde of monsters was lurking in the mist. Solfiens, is this a forbidden zone? They must be watching us, Bu Yunseol realized in horror. He quickly deduced that they had deliberately set a trap as soon as they saw them running here. Damn it, what now? Jinha asked, and Yunseol replied that the fiends wouldn't attack if they didn't cross the boundary. If we have to fight anyway, Bu Yunseol drew his sword. Then fighting here isn't the worst option. He explained that with the forbidden zone behind them, this battlefield was no different from a cave with its exit blocked. Seojinha understood, his eyes becoming resolute. So there's no other choice. Both took up their stances, ready for the inevitable battle. Just then, the pursuing group arrived, declaring, You've run out of road here. Yu Menqing and his cohorts smirked triumphantly, certain their prey was within their grasp. Bu Yunseol and Seojinha stood back to back, swords pointed forward, facing the enemy's encirclement. A group of white-masked disciples hid in the shadows, radiating intense killing intent. Their leader sneered, annoying insects, no need to drag this out. Finish them all in one blow. At his command, the entire pursuing group charged simultaneously. Meanwhile, in a distant place, two figures stood on a cliff under the night sky. The burly, silver-haired man mused, This must be the final battle to decide the Shidaimojian. Back in the battle, Yu Menqing unleashed a volley of sharp throwing knives. Bu Yunseol didn't hesitate for a moment, charging straight into the hail of blades. He swung his sword, creating a perfect arc that deflected all the weapons. His sword swept through, striking down many enemies in the blink of an eye. At the same time, Seojinha was also surrounded by another group. He fought fiercely, his sword light flashing amidst the enemy's encirclement. Seojinha's eyes blazed with tenacious fighting spirit. He roared, using all his strength to block a dangerous attack. His sword quickly parried another blade. Seizing the opportunity, he delivered a dangerous kick to his opponent. After an intense battle, Bu Yunseol and Seojinha stood back to back, panting. Around them, the battlefield was littered with the corpses of the fallen. Seojinha's hand gripped his blood-soaked sword tightly. Exhausted, he trembled so much he couldn't hold his weapon. He thought in despair, So this is where I'll die. I've given my all. There's nothing left to regret. Bu Yunseol heard him, silently wondering. No regrets? A memory suddenly flooded back. The image of his kind grandfather reaching out to him. Next was the tragic moment of an old man with bleeding eyes. His train of thought cut short. Bu Unseol gritted his teeth. I cannot die in a place like this. His eyes flared with murderous intent. Before him, two masked disciples charged forward, intending to finish him off. Bu Yunzial swung his sword, creating an arc that swept away his enemies. The two disciples took the full force of the slash, blood splattering everywhere. He transformed into a deadly ghost, plunging into the enemy's encirclement. The leader exclaimed in horror, "That bastard!" He couldn't believe his eyes. What kind of monstrous swordsmanship is that? Recovering from his shock, he roared an order. "Kill him first." Meanwhile, Seo Jinha closed his eyes, his mind settling. "Feel with your senses, and move according to your instincts." The words of his old master echoed in his head. "Haven't you already learned this old man's swordsmanship?" Bu Yunseol's eyes blazed with crimson murderous intent. Ruthless sword strikes flashed in the night. Amidst the blood-soaked battlefield, Bu Unseol stood firm, his sword still stained with enemy blood. From afar, a burly supervisor and his assistant were stunned by the sight. The young man coldly looked down at those who had fallen by his hand. He thought to himself, Senior Sao's practical swordsmanship is indeed like this. Immediately, Yu Menqing charged in, two streams of sword energy clashing fiercely. Yu Menqing sneered, "I've got you." He seized the opportunity, using his bare hand to firmly grasp Bu Yunseol's sword-wielding wrist. The vice-like grip tightened, completely neutralizing his attack. With a shocking blow, Bu Yunseol was sent flying backward. His body was flung away like a leaf in a storm. Witnessing this, Seo Jinha screamed his friend's name, but Yu Minqing merely scoffed. "Sorry, but that guy is finished." "No!" Seo Jinha cried out in despair. "Get up, Bu Unseol." "That's..." Bu Yunseol clutched his head, writhing in pain, fresh blood oozing from the corner of his mouth. Suddenly, a surge of dark purple energy enveloped him, causing an observer to exclaim, "That's the forbidden zone." Bu Yunseol's eyes became lifeless, his body covered in injuries. From the deep darkness, a cloaked ghost wearing a stark white mask gradually materialized. The image of that soul fiend reflected in Bu Yunseol's empty pupils. The masked assailant swung his sword, radiating intense, killing intent. In Bu Yunseol's horrified eyes, the image of the death-dealing blade grew larger. He could only let out a desperate scream. Just then, a powerful roar echoed through the sky. "Stop right there." The assailant's hand was mere inches from Bu Unseol's face. Before him were two terrifying figures, Sao and the mysterious masked assailant. Bu Yunseol gasped Sao's name in shock. He continued to call the other person elder, but only silence answered him. All hope seemed to vanish. He bowed his head, accepting his fate. The chief instructor descended from the sky, shouting, "Hurry!" He ordered, "Bring the mad doctor here immediately, before this kid dies." Despite Jingek's attempts to dissuade him, the instructor boldly declared, "I will bear full responsibility." Jingek could only stare in astonishment at his superior's decisiveness. The chief instructor thought to himself, "I've finally found it. A perfect rough gem." As the unconscious Bu Unseol was carried away, he concluded, "A true talent to become a heart demon disciple." In another room, a voice spoke up. "Chief instructor, what are you thinking?" Elder Hua Wuming explained the rules. 10 people for the 10 demonic paths, and 2 to serve as eyes and ears for the heart demon disciple. He concluded, "That's 12 in total, the original number." Hua Wuming warned about ending the test early, but the chief instructor merely replied, "I am already prepared." "It's fine," he casually replied to Hua Wuming's concern about the upcoming envoys. The chief instructor confidently declared, "Even the judgment of the 10 demonic paths cannot supersede me." Crows circled above the pavilion roof, signaling a scene change. In an unfamiliar room, Bu Yunseol lay still on the bed. He slowly opened his eyes, waking from his stupor. Sitting up in confusion, he wondered, "Where is this?" The faint scent of medicine in the air made him realize this was a place for injured soldiers to rest. Suddenly, Bu Yunseol was startled as he noticed something unusual about his body. He was astonished to find all his wounds had completely healed. Not only external injuries, but even the persistent internal injuries from overtraining had vanished. Bu Unseol secretly marveled. This Demon Palace doctor's medical skills were far greater than he had imagined. He cautiously peeked out the door into the long corridor outside. A stranger smiled and greeted him. "Young master, you're awake. Please come this way." Bu Unseol silently followed the person up a flight of stairs. Before him was a vast hall, bustling with people. The view outside the window revealed a massive architectural complex. "Where am I?" Bu Unseol asked. The guide replied, "The central area of the second palace." He was stunned, realizing this was the central area he couldn't access before. The guide offered, "Would you like something to eat? If there's anything you like, I can make it for you. Bu Yunsol fell silent, seemingly deep in thought. Noodles, he said, holding up 2 fingers. 2 bowls will be fine. 2 steaming bowls of noodles were served. Bu Yunseol silently gazed at the 2 bowls of noodles before him. A memory suddenly flooded back. The image of young Yunseol happily eating with his grandfather. Back in reality, he sat alone, eating amidst the gazes of those around him. A young man with purplish-red hair suddenly approached him. You must really like noodles. You ordered 2 bowls. Bu Unseol looked up and asked, Seo Jinha, what is it? Seo Jinha seemed hesitant, finding it difficult to speak. Finally, he stated his purpose. Thank you for saving me. Seo Jinha explained that if not for Bu Yunseol, he wouldn't have survived. Bu Yunseol replied blankly, while Seo Jinha was surprised that he had no idea what had happened. Seo Jinha began to recount that originally, only 12 people remained after the 3rd palace. But because the chief instructor suddenly stopped the test to save Bu Yunseol, 14 people survived. So, to be precise, I owe my life to you, Seo Jinha confessed awkwardly. Noticing Bu Yunseol's bewildered expression, Seo Jinha sighed and said that he had been unconscious for a while. It's been 4 days. Bu Unseol was stunned, secretly thinking he had only been unconscious for a day. Seo Jinha smiled and said that he was very lucky to have been treated by the mad doctor nearby. The mad doctor, once known as the divine doctor, went mad after helplessly watching his beloved pass away. It is said that as long as there is a single breath left, he can save anyone, and he was the one who treated Bu Unseol. Bu Yunsol lowered his head, a bitter feeling rising in his heart. If only my grandfather had met him before he passed away. Seo Jinha, while eating, said, Let me tell you a few more things. Consider it a favor from an old comrade. While Bu Unseol was still lamenting his cold bowl of noodles, Seo Jinha began to explain about the monsters they had faced. He revealed that they were masters sent from the 10 demonic paths to evaluate and select successors. Bu Yunseol exclaimed, So that's it. No wonder their martial arts were on par with the instructor. He looked up, getting straight to the point. So, do you know why the chief instructor saved me? Seo Jinha replied that he wondered the same thing, as the chief instructor seemed very keen on Bu Unseol becoming a disciple of the 10 demonic paths. Bu Yunsol shook his head decisively, asserting that he had no connection whatsoever with that chief instructor. Seo Jinha became even more puzzled, revealing that the chief instructor had been severely punished, forced to resign, and return to the demonic palace. Bu Unseol sank into thought, his mind reeling from the unbelievable information. He couldn't understand why a stranger would accept punishment just to save him. Just then, a loud bell suddenly echoed throughout the space. Bu Unseol flinched at the strange sound, while Seo Jinha stood up and said, It seems it's time, let's go. Seo Jinha explained that it was a signal to summon everyone remaining in the 2nd palace. That could only mean one thing. The leaders of the 10 demonic paths had arrived. In the grand hall of the 2nd palace, the atmosphere became solemn. All survivors of the test, including Bu Yunseol, had gathered. Bu Yunseol stood in the ranks, silently waiting. The large doors opened, and a group of people with extraordinary, authoritative presence entered. Bu Yunseol broke out in a cold sweat, sensing a terrifying silence. He was astonished to realize that so many people were moving, yet not a single footstep could be heard. One of the leaders of the 10 demonic paths, a burly old man holding a long spear, stood before the ranks of disciples. He observed thoughtfully. Suddenly, his finger pointed directly at a disciple. He was Bulsa, the division lord of the Death Command Gate, and he extended an invitation. Do you wish to become the successor of the Death Command Gate? A nearby disciple was stunned. The chosen one, a young man with light curly hair, stammered, Sir, are you talking about me? Bulsa called him by name. Yes, young Munho, step forward. Young Munho hesitated because he only practiced swordsmanship, but Bulsa asserted that he was born to master the Death Command spear. He explained that despite practicing swordsmanship, young Munho's physique was suited for spear techniques, which was why he hadn't achieved great success yet. Understanding the situation, young Munho immediately obeyed and followed. Immediately after, another old man in a black hooded cloak sneered, declaring it was his turn. He was Ji Yehun, the 10,000 Poison Venerable, Vice Lord of the Hellblood Castle. The disciples whispered in horror about the reputation of a poison master who could wipe out all life within 30 zhang. Ji Yehun also made his choice, calling Seo Jinha's name. He extended his hand, asking if he wished to become the successor of the Hellblood Castle. Seo Jinha was stunned, his eyes wide with surprise. His thoughts raced. Why should a swordsmanship prodigy like himself, since childhood, join the Hellblood Castle, which specialized in poisons? Shi Yehun seemed to read his mind, slowly stating that the most terrifying poison was the human heart. He exposed Seo Jinha's past. Even before your 3 gates opened, you intended to use the girl at the martial arts hall to kill all the other trainees, didn't you? And when you failed, you brutally murdered her to cover your track. Seo Jinha argued vehemently, claiming his actions were merely self-defense and that calling it a massacre was an exaggeration. Ji Yehun calmly replied, I don't blame you. He continued, asserting that precisely this character, unafraid to take lives for a goal, was suited for the poison arts of the Hellblood Castle. You may be talented in swordsmanship, but that alone isn't enough to disregard the martial world, he sneered. Shi Yehun concluded that his talent for using poison far surpassed his talent for using a sword. Seo Jinha was speechless, the old man's words piercing deep into his mind. He secretly pondered the phrase "the chosen one," while Bu Unseol and the other disciples stood in silence. Shi Yehun even praised his sword skills, saying that despite being newly learned, they rivaled his own 10 years of achievement. Hearing this, Seo Jinha clenched his fist, seemingly having made up his mind. I will join the Hellblood Castle, he declared decisively. Shi Yehun smiled contentedly. Follow me, he said, then led Seo Jinha away under the gaze of the others. Just then, a powerful voice rang out. Now it's the righteous faction's turn. A man dressed in luxurious red and black attire, exuding an extraordinary aura, slowly walked in. It was Wei Hyakgun of the Flame Rain Sword Clan, the strongest demonic sword of the current era. His sharp, icy blue gaze swept over all the disciples. Bu Yunseol was stunned, not expecting to meet the greatest demonic sword himself. The other disciples whispered, each holding their breath, hoping to be the chosen one. Wei Hyakgun stopped his gaze and called out, You! He looked directly at Bu Yunseol. You are Bu Yunseol, aren't you? Wei Hyakgun acknowledged Bu Yunseol's talent, mentioning that he had inherited the supreme true body of Lord Qian. He placed his hopes on the boy's future, advising him to hone the profound sword techniques of the clan. Bu Yunseol was sweating profusely, while in a corner, Sao quietly observed. Suddenly, Bu Yunseol spoke, drawing everyone's attention. He boldly declared, I will not join the Flame Rain Sword Clan. Wei Hyakgun froze, unable to believe his ears, only managing to utter, What? His face darkened, and a sharp voice rang out. What did you just say? Killing intent erupted, and Wei Hyakgun roared, How dare you refuse the main lineage's offer of succession? Bu Unseol braced himself against the terrifying pressure that was crashing down. He tried to explain, sweat pouring down him. I heard that I could refuse the offer. Wei Hyakgun narrowed his eyes, his voice as cold as ice, refusing the main lineage to choose another place. Where do you intend to go? Bu Yunseol bowed his head, gathering all his courage to state his decision. He looked up sharply, his gaze firm. I will go to Langya Pavilion. Wei Hyakgun's pupils constricted, astonishment and fury erupting. You said, Langya Pavilion? The other disciples were also enraged. Of all places, the most declining Langya Pavilion? How dare you insult the main lineage? Wei Hyakgun gritted his teeth, his rage reaching its peak. Bu Yunseol was crushed by the pressure, thinking to himself, His aura alone is enough to crush my body. This is the current demonic sword, Wei Hyakgun. Even a master like Sao had to kneel, unable to withstand the demonic sword's fury. In the main hall, the disciples were terrified by the horrifying surge of killing intent. How dare you? Wei Hyakgun roared, his rage exploding. He yelled at the person who had just blocked his way. A mere deputy pavilion master dares to stop me. Under immense pressure, Sao tensed, his hand already gripping his sword hilt. The other disciples thought in panic, Is he crazy? Daring to draw a sword before the demonic sword. Bu Unseol was stunned, calling out the name of the person who had just shielded him. Sao, Wei Hyakgun sneered. You dare overstep your bounds, thinking your friendship with old Jin will protect you? Another elder worried. If the demonic sword goes berserk, everyone will be dragged into it. We must stop them. Wei Hyakgun's gleaming golden sword hilt vibrated, his killing intent soaring. Bu Yunseol also showed no fear, his hand already on his weapon. Suddenly, a nonchalant voice spoke up. Well, everyone seems tense, don't they? A blonde-haired man appeared, gently holding Wei Hyakgun's hand. This is far enough, isn't it? The suffocating confrontation was halted by the unexpected intervention. The stranger's hand tightened, giving the demonic sword no chance to draw his weapon. Wei Hyakgun frowned, his eyes showing annoyance as he recognized the newcomer. The deputy pavilion master of Langya Pavilion, Danshin, smiled and suggested, For my sake, can we let this go for now? Another elder also spoke up to mediate. In any case, Langya Pavilion must take at least one person, right? Wei Hyakgun remained silent, his icy blue eyes flashing with a sharp gaze. Sao maintained his stance, ready to fight to protect Bu Unseol. Finally, the current demonic sword let out a sigh, temporarily suppressing his anger. Danshin warned Wei Hyakgun to leave quickly before his sword unsheathed itself, and the current demonic sword reluctantly accepted. With the situation resolved, Danshin smiled contentedly. Nevertheless, Wee Hyuk-gun's face still showed his displeasure as he stood up and left. Danshin turned to Sao and Bu Yunseol, saying, "Let's go too," and the boy quietly obeyed. Bu Yunseol was still haunted, thinking about the terrifying killing intent Wee Hyuk-gun had directed at him. At the end of the corridor, Wee Hyuk-gun strode towards a waiting attendant. The boy shivered as he recalled, if they hadn't intervened, then a bloody battle would likely have been unavoidable. Bu Yunseol hurried after Sao and Danshin as they left the contentious place. On the way, Sao praised, "Your skills have improved remarkably," and Bu Yunseol humbly replied that it was thanks to the beast technique the elder had taught him. Danshin also struck up a conversation, expressing surprise that Bu Yunseol chose Longya Pavilion, and the boy explained that its philosophy suited him well. With a radiant smile, Danshin announced, "We've arrived." Before them appeared a vast complex, and Danshin proudly introduced, "This is Longya Pavilion." Bu Yunseol was completely stunned. He had imagined a solemn, tranquil place, not a bustling, noisy, and vibrant marketplace like this. Seeing his surprise, Danshin explained that Longya Pavilion advocated self-sufficiency, unlike other sects. Bu Yunseol looked around, a question suddenly arising in his mind. He asked, seeing only older people, "Does Longya Pavilion not have any disciples my age?" Danshin gave an awkward laugh, seemingly uncomfortable with the question. He explained that many young people had once come, but most either died or fled because they couldn't endure the harsh training process. Danshin happily pointed forward. "I understand. That spot is good." He pointed to a simple wooden house and said, "From now on, this will be your residence. If anything needs fixing, just tell the blacksmith over there," Danshin instructed. The person mentioned was the blacksmith Wang Ji, a burly man diligently at work. After finishing the arrangements, Danshin called, "Let's go, Sao." Sao turned back and said to Bu Unseol, "Then I'll be leaving. You continue your training." The boy asked in surprise, "Master, aren't you staying here?" Danshin explained that Sao was the secret pavilion master, and even to protect Bu Unseol, he couldn't casually challenge the demonic sword, and whoever made a mistake had to be punished. Bu Yunseol asked in confusion, "Punished? So you have to leave because..." Sao smiled reassuringly, "Don't worry too much, it's just a light punishment. It won't be long." He patted Bu Unseol's back firmly, instructing, "Don't you dare be lazy while I'm not here. I'll be checking on you often." Bu Yunseol remained silent, his gaze following his master's retreating back. He silently wished, "Please take care." Danshin turned back, smiling as he called his name. "Bu Unseol, you are not yet an official disciple of the Nongya Pavilion." Bu Yunseol froze, asking blankly, "What? You have become the successor of the Heart Demon, but that doesn't mean you are an official disciple," Danshin explained. His gaze sharpened. "The weak cannot become disciples of the Nongya Pavilion." That declaration shook Bu Unseol. The boy quickly regained his composure, pressing, "So you mean, if I'm strong enough, I can become a disciple without any other procedures?" Danshin laughed heartily. "Exactly. This place has no need for cumbersome rituals. Every disciple here represents the Nongya Pavilion itself, so there's no need to force oaths or allegiance," he continued. Danshin smiled, advising Bu Yunseol to train in martial arts and become stronger, enough to be recognized as a true disciple of the Nongya Pavilion. "Everyone here is your teacher," Danshin said, leaving Bu Unseol stunned by the prospect of the surrounding masters. He squinted, a sly smile on his face. "But whether they choose to teach you or not is up to them." The scene shifted to T-Bang Peak, a towering rocky mountain amidst the mist. Bu Unseol panted, drenched in sweat as he clung to the perilous cliff face. He persistently climbed the treacherous path, alone in midair. "Just a little further and I'll reach the peak," he muttered to himself, recalling Danshin's command. In his memory, Danshin had promised, "Up there, a master will teach you the most supreme mental cultivation technique." Finally, the flat mountaintop appeared before his eyes. Bu Yunseol strained to climb up, his head just clearing the edge of the rock. A deep voice echoed, startling him. "So, you are the one chosen to be the Heart Demon's successor of the Nongya Pavilion." A burly figure in a brown robe stood towering on the mountaintop. Bu Yunseol clasped his hands in response, but the master cut him off. "You must have come here to learn a mental cultivation technique. You already possess internal energy, yet you still seek a higher realm?" His question left Bu Unseol completely bewildered. The master affirmed, "I can feel the qi flowing in your body, and it's not that of a beginner, but something systematically cultivated since childhood. All my life I've only been a fire master, never having practiced any mental cultivation technique," Bu Yunseol denied in confusion. The master smirked, his eyes sharp. "Then there can only be two possibilities." He leaned close to the boy's face, growling, "Either you are the greatest liar in the world, or you learned a mental cultivation technique in your dreams." Bu Yunseol asserted, "I swear it's not a lie. You can verify it yourself." The bald master remained silent, his eyes full of skepticism. Then I can destroy all the chi in your body, can't I? He said, then suddenly grabbed the boy's wrist. Of course, Bu Unseol replied. Though sweat beaded on his forehead, the master began to transmit his internal energy to examine the boy's meridians, but immediately, he was stunned in surprise. Huh? He sensed something illogical. This kid. His body is full of ki, but there's no circulation at all. That meant he had blindly accumulated chi in his dantian, something that couldn't happen under normal circumstances. Bu Unseol cried out in pain as the two streams of chi collided. He looked up, growling. Who exactly are you? The master roared back, his eyes wild. Who taught you how to accumulate chi? Bu Unseol was completely dumbfounded by the sudden question. The master turned away, radiating intense, killing intent. No, if you utter a single word about that mental cultivation technique, I will kill you and everyone involved. Despite the threat, Bu Yunseol's gaze did not waver. He calmly clasped his hands, performing a martial artist's salute. He stood solemnly before the large man who still had his back turned. The master glanced back, a mysterious smile on his lips. He spoke in a deep, resonant voice, introducing himself as Blood Vajra. Bu Yunseol thought blankly. Why would a monk's dharma name contain such an ominous word as blood? Blood Vajra began his lecture. Do you know the difference between the internal energy of orthodox sects and demonic cultivation? Orthodox internal energy uses natural methods to accumulate inner power in the body, similar to the energy circulation and breathing techniques I mentioned. On the other hand, the demonic path will use any means necessary to accumulate true chi. That's why they can generate a massive amount of true chi from the start. But such methods go against the natural order of the body and martial arts principles. Ultimately, in the long run, they will be overwhelmingly surpassed by the righteous path in terms of purity and level of internal energy. However, the Nixin Jing that I am about to impart to you completely transcends the limitations of demonic cultivation techniques. It is the most profound and advanced cultivation method in existence. The master clenched his fist, warning. But great things always come with a price. He recalled the horrifying past. The process of cultivating the Nixin Jing was so agonizing that I had to bite off and swallow my own fingers. Only a prodigy who can endure such indescribable pain can possess a body perfectly synchronized with the flow of internal energy and chi and blood. He revealed his tragic past, having once been a master of the Tianlong Sea in Yunnan, framed, crippled of his internal cultivation, and expelled, then helped by the Langia Ge, and promised to pass on a cultivation method to repay his debt. If you fail to learn the Nixin Jing, I will not be able to keep my promise, he asserted. Therefore, I will conduct a test. From now on, I will use Nizhen Qi to simultaneously open all 365 of your acupoints, because to learn the Nizhen Jing, there must not be a single trace of impure energy in your qi and blood. Shui Jingang looked directly at Bu Yunseol, giving him one last chance. If you lack confidence, you may give up. Bu Yunseol pressed his lips together, his gaze unwavering. He resolutely replied, I will, causing Shui Jingang to smirk with satisfaction. Good, don't regret it, Shui Jingang roared, beginning to circulate his internal energy. Bu Yunseol directly faced the terrifying surge of energy being unleashed. A brilliant golden explosion of true qi enveloped the entire area. Shui Jingang explained as the pain struck. When using true qi to open acupoints, a pain like having your bones scraped by a knife will surely appear. Shui Jingang thought to himself, with such confidence, he wondered how long this kid would last. But he was astonished to realize that not only did the boy not scream, he didn't even flinch. Furthermore, the sweat that emerged when his meridians were cleared had absolutely no foul odor. Could it be, this child possesses an unusually pure body? As the true qi subsided, the master and disciple stood facing each other. Shui Jingang couldn't hide his wildly excited smile. He realized that from the very beginning, there were no impurities whatsoever in the boy's meridians. The bald master burst into hearty laughter, leaving Bu Yunseol a little bewildered. He confirmed the boy's name. Your name is Bu Yunseol, isn't it? And received the reply, yes, from today onwards, I shall impart the Nixin Jing to you. Shui Jingang solemnly declared. 6 months later, on a sky-piercing mountain peak, Bu Unseol's figure stood tall amidst the clouds and mist, his aura completely transformed. During the training session, Shui Jingang lifted a colossal boulder. Then he hurled it with all his might directly at his disciple. Bu Yunseol calmly faced the boulder, hurtling towards him like a meteor. He stood firm, tensing all his strength to prepare his strike. With just one punch, Yunseol's robust body crushed the boulder into 100 pieces. Heat emanated from his muscular back, proof of the results of 6 months of arduous training. Shui Jingang acknowledged with satisfaction. He has certainly reached the first stage. Bu Yunseol, with his muscular physique, stood tall and imposing. He turned, his long hair fluttering in the wind, his gaze sharp as a blade. Shui Jinggang secretly marveled. It took me 3 years, but he only needed 6 months. His progress far exceeds expectations. Yunseol also had his own thoughts. Though his speech is rough and his appearance frightening, he is a good person. He sincerely said, I will never forget this kindness. But Shui Jinggang bluntly replied, no. He turned his back and walked away, coldly ordering, forget even my existence. Those words made Unseol suddenly recall his grandfather's advice. Forget, whether it's kindness or resentment, if you can forget it, it's best to forget it all. He wondered to himself, why does everyone say the same things? Shui Jinggang's voice rang out, interrupting his thoughts. If you truly wish to repay me, then one day, achieve enlightenment and reach the 8th stage, the realm of the great origin. That is the only way, for I lack talent and could only barely reach the 5th stage. Yunseol bowed his head, firmly replying, I understand, elder. Shui Jinggang explained. Now that you've reached the 2nd stage, I have nothing more to teach. What you need now is to build your martial arts foundation. He pointed to a distant mountain. Go to the Qingming Tai at the far end of the Longyaga Academy and practice your movement techniques. Go, Shui Jinggang urged. Yunseol silently looked at his master. He bowed deeply in farewell. May elder be safe and sound. 3 months later, in a distant place, Shui Jinggang's belated reply seemed to still echo. You too, kid. In an inn at night, a man sat drinking wine, with an attendant behind him. The man took a sip of wine and spoke. The Shangshin Ludian returned this morning. They went to eliminate the Qinglong faction, didn't they? An old man laughed heartily. They deserved it for daring to touch the master's disciple. To deal with the opposing faction, who else but the Shangshin Ludian combat unit would be sent? It's truly satisfying. The man opposite looked outside, wondering. Speaking of which, the Fengyun Ludian, the intelligence unit, should be returning soon, right? He turned back, grumbling. Speak of the devil. They could just use the main gate, but they always have to act like spies. On the rooftop, a dark figure lightly landed. The entire team of ninjas glided through the night, swift as ghosts. The leader landed on the roof of a building, standing proudly against the night sky. A teasing voice spoke up. Good heavens, standing there posing as if you want someone to paint your portrait. That person continued to call out, if you're back, just head straight into the hall. What are you loitering around outside for? Baekyeon, the captain's name was called out. Baekyeon turned around, his gaze sharp. Deputy Pavilion Master, Danshin chuckled. Hey, I told you, when it's just the two of us, you can just call me by my name. Baekyeon sternly refused. Please don't say such ridiculous things. The pavilion's discipline is already lax. I cannot let you mess it up further. He continued. It's quite convenient, actually. I was just about to look for you. Danshin asked curiously. Baekyeon questioned. I heard you brought back a remarkably talented 10-demon disciple from Hell Island. You originally opposed this plan, so why did you intercept a genius from the Fire Rain Gate and bring him here? Danshin casually replied. It's not exactly that I brought him back. Rather, he chose us. He even flat-out refused the Fire Rain Gate's invitation. Baekyeon was skeptical. A once-in-a-century genius. Chose the Nangya Pavilion, Danshin said gleefully, right? Because of this, I almost had an all-out battle with that damn sword demon. Danshin smiled admiringly. Still, I have to admire that kid's spirit. Daring to walk into our pavilion by himself. Baekyeon remained silent, frowning in thought at his superior's words. Danshin explained. Because of that incident, the Fire Rain Gate ultimately didn't choose any 10 demon disciples. Their leaders also seemed displeased. Baekyeon muttered. So that's how it is. Baekyeon growled. You know full well that the Nangya Pavilion has been suppressed by the Demon Palace for years, making us seem like a declining sect. Danshin merely smiled in response. It seems you've been outside for too long. Our goal is the pinnacle of martial arts, after all. Not to be the overlord of the martial world, Danshin continued, causing Baekyeon to mutter, that's just an ideal. Baekyeon frowned, his expression serious. In any case, there's something we need to do urgently. He asked directly, where is our successor? He's in danger of having his 10-demon disciple status revoked. At the same time, on the clear bright platform, a leaf silently drifted on the calm lake surface. A foot, light as air, landed on the leaf, causing only a small ripple on the water's surface. Then immediately, that foot glided away, leaving the leaf bouncing on the water. Bu Unseol moved with terrifying speed, his figure gliding across the lake like a phantom. An old man appeared. He was Go Wool, once known by the title Grand Thief Swift Shadow. Go Wool explained to Bu Unseol. What I taught you is the Swift technique, a martial art I named Swift Shadow after myself. He warned, many have been crippled for failing to keep up with this art. Let's see what you can do. But just a month later, Go Wool exclaimed in astonishment. You've already reached the third stage? Satisfied at having found a successor, he packed his bags and left. I will close this place. The rest you must comprehend through practical combat. Returning to the present, Bu Yunseol stopped, his foot hovering just above the water's surface, demonstrating absolute control. From a high rock outcrop, Danchin and Baekyeon witnessed the entire scene. Both stood atop a majestic waterfall, silently observing. Danchin smiled and explained, "That is Master Go's Swift Shadow, a martial art that cannot be mastered in a short time." Baekyeon was stunned, thinking to himself, could it be that he has only focused on practicing movement techniques since arriving here? Danchin sneered, recounting Bu Unseol's achievements. He had only joined half a year ago, and just last month, he learned martial arts at the Iron Cauldron. Baekyeon was stunned, forced to admit that the rumor of Unseol mastering the Beast Path in 2 weeks was true. Danchin further revealed that thanks to Sao giving him Supreme Spirit Spring Water, the kid's meridians had been unblocked early on. But he also admitted that Unseol's talent far surpassed the ordinary. He himself had broken the original plan for the 12-10 Demon Lords. When Baekyeon asked about the Pavilion Master, Danchin confirmed that he was still in seclusion, which was why he had to shoulder everything. Baekyeon's face grew serious, reminding him that the 10 Demon Lords plan initiated by the Demon Palace was causing dissatisfaction among other sects. Danchin analyzed that, unlike the Nangya Pavilion, other sects already had their successors, so their displeasure was understandable. He laid his cards on the table, asserting that the true purpose of this plan was to train assassins to purge renowned masters. Baekyeon calmly replied, showing that he already knew of this conspiracy, but pointed out that some sects were still oblivious. Danchin explained that those sects had naively sent even their own successors into this bloody selection. Both agreed that it wasn't a bad move if those successors were truly talented, at least under normal circumstances. Baekyeon changed the subject, pointing out the core issue. But because of that child, Kang Muryun, the sole son of the White Demon Palace leader, died. An image of a panicked, desperate Bu Yunseol appeared in the stream of memories. Danchin seemed puzzled, believing that death was part of the trial, but also admitted that the White Demon Palace wasn't the only one with a grudge against Yunseol. Baekyeon continued, saying that the Flame Rain Sword Clan was also making a fuss about Yunseol learning their supreme sword techniques. Sword Demon Wi Hyokun was exerting pressure for punishment, while Cheon Ungguang had been dismissed, making Danchin angrily scratch his head. How petty, Danchin snapped. So what exactly do they want? Baekyeon coldly announced their 2 demands, re-evaluating his 10 Demon Lord qualification and permanently revoking Bu Yunseol's right to use a sword. Danchin angrily turned away, decisively rejecting. Absurd. How can a disciple of the Nangya Pavilion be forbidden from using a sword? A glint of determination flashed in Danchin's eyes. Amidst the calm lake surface, a small figure glided as if flying. Bu Yunseol landed on the water as light as a feather. Baekyeon greeted as Bu Yunseol arrived before him. Deputy Pavilion Master, you've arrived. Danchin smiled with satisfaction, while Baekyeon asked in surprise, You are the heart demon of the Nangya Pavilion? Danchin then introduced. This is Baekyeon, the leader of the Pungun Brigade. Just call him Captain Baek. Bu Yunseol cupped his hands in a salute, but Baekyeon only responded with a curt sound. When Danchin was about to say something, Baekyeon immediately raised his hand to stop him. Danchin could only give a wry smile, saying it wouldn't make a difference whether he spoke or not. Indeed, Bu Yunseol stood there with a calm expression, as if he had understood everything. He declared boldly, This happened because of me. I will take responsibility. Bu Yunseol apologized, explaining that he had used the heart-eye vibration chi of the wild beast path to eavesdrop. Baekyeon froze, unable to believe the boy could simultaneously execute movement techniques and use a profound skill to sense aura. Bu Yunseol confirmed, saying he had followed the vibrations on the water's surface. Danchin was delighted by Baekyeon's stunned expression. He's always like this. Surprised? Baekyeon clenched his fists, his inner world seemingly in turmoil. He couldn't help but secretly admire. Such a genius. Suddenly, Baekyeon proposed. Why don't we bet on the boy? Which stunned Danchin. Danchin cried out in horror. You want to send him to the Demon Palace for a trial. They want to kill him. Baekyeon analyzed. The Demon Palace's goal is to appease the leader of the White Demon Palace, not to kill the boy. Danchin still hesitated. But if we refuse, a lot of trouble will arise, and he's still too young. Unexpectedly, Bu Yunseol interjected decisively, I will go. To their astonishment, he reaffirmed, I will go to the Demon Palace. Bu Yunseol calmly explained, As you said, they want to improve their image. Killing a child like me would only make their image worse. More importantly, as a disciple of Nangya Pavilion, I don't want to shy away from battles that come my way. Danchin sighed in admission. He's right. This was bound to happen sooner or later. Let's use this opportunity to resolve it once and for all. He looked directly at Yunseol, setting a condition. If you pass the trial, make them promise to let go of everything that has happened. Danshin stated firmly, I will allow you to participate if they agree to that promise. And Bu Yunseol clasped his hands in response. I understand. Under Baekhyun's gaze, Bu Yunseol advanced alone towards the fated gate. He thought to himself, when I first came here, I knew nothing about martial arts. But now, I am confidently walking into the demon palace as a demonic master of Nangya Pavilion. The guide pointed forward. This is the Myriad Phenomena Pavilion, the brain of the demon palace. Someone else inside will guide you. Bu Yunseol looked up at the Myriad Phenomena Pavilion, the nerve center that managed and planned for the entire demon palace. He stepped over the threshold, thinking to himself, this is where I will learn about the trial I must face. But when the door opened, the sight inside horrified him. This is... The guide suddenly paused, wondering. He looks familiar.